Chapter 292. The villa was located in the southwest corner of the mansion. It was a huge indoor shooting range. Wuxia had always been willing to invest a lot of effort into Xiaoyichen. When Xiaoyichen had just learned how to walk, Wuxia had sent him to the special training camp to observe the soldiers' special training. When he was young, Grandpa Mu had also trained him in the same way. Every summer, he would send him to the special training camp to undergo special training. Under Wuxia's influence, Xiaoyichen had developed a strong interest in firearms and combat at a young age. When he was 2 years old and the other children were still learning how to speak, Xiaoyichen was already holding a pacifier in his mouth. He could skillfully assemble and load all kinds of firearms and ammunition. When he was 3 years old, he could even load and shoot skillfully. Even Grandpa Mu could not help but click his tongue in amazement. Children of the same age as Xiaoyichen might still be learning how to speak. Those who were talented liked to draw on white paper and were still obsessed with interesting toys. However, Xiaoyichen seemed to have inherited Wuxia's iron-blooded genes. He did not like to play with words and ink. Instead, he was obsessed with combat and firearms. When he was 5 years old, he officially entered the military camp. Not only did he not complain about the heavy training, but he was also very excited about it. Grandpa Mu was in awe. Not only was this child not inferior to Wuxia when he was young, but he had even surpassed him in terms of maturity. The villa was not only equipped with a fencing hall, but it was also equipped with an archery hall, a shooting range, and a combat arena. All of these were prepared for Xiaoyichen. At the same time, in the archery hall, it was quiet. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop on the ground. Xiaoyichen was wearing a smart and neat protective suit. He stood upright and held a heavy bow in his hand. He held his breath and focused on aiming at the target 100 meters away. His fingers pulled the bowstring. Swoosh! The arrow that was released from the bowstring seemed to have the power of a thunderbolt. It was like an arrow made of sparks. It was shot in an instant and accurately hit the bullseye. Young master. Behind him, the nanny who had rushed over had been waiting for a long time. Seeing him put down the bow, she said softly, "Master and young madam want you to have breakfast." Xiaoyichen acted as if he hadn't heard anything. He turned around with a cold expression and took off his equipment expressionlessly. Suddenly, he thought of something and turned around to ask, "Did Daddy come back last night?" Young master didn't come back last night." Xiaoyichen furrowed his brows slightly, and there was a hint of loneliness in his eyes. After a moment of silence, he picked up the towel handed to him by a servant and wiped the sweat off his face. "I'm not going. Tell Grandpa and Mommy that I have no appetite." His cold words revealed that he was somewhat disappointed at the moment. The nanny said with a worried face, "Young master, if you don't go eat breakfast, Master will be worried. Skipping breakfast isn't good for your health. Then prepare a copy for me and send it to my study," Xiaoyichen said coldly and walked out of the archery range. Behind him, the nanny looked at his cold figure and sighed softly. The father and son were exactly the same in terms of temperament. Chapter 293. When she opened the door, the apartment was cold and empty. Wuxia followed behind her. The moment he stepped into the extremely small space, a look of disdain appeared on his face out of displeasure. This apartment was too small. To Yun Shirshir and Yu, this apartment was extremely spacious. Compared to the second-hand apartment that Papa Yun had bought previously, this apartment had 2 bedrooms, 1 living room, 1 bedroom, 1 study, and a 10-square-meter living room. Could be said that this apartment was very comfortable for them to live in. However, to Wuxia, who was nearly 1.9 meters tall, this place seemed especially cramped. Standing in such a small space with his hands and feet tied, he felt extremely restrained. Yun Shirshir rushed into the room and hurriedly prepared a change of clothes for Yu. The material of the hospital gown was coarse, and the child's skin was soft and sensitive. Sleeping in the hospital gown was really unsettling. Although Yu did not mention it, Yun Shirshir was attentive. With one glance, she saw the red rash on his wrist due to his sensitive body. Her heart ached terribly. Although the clothes that she bought for Yu were not expensive, She had specially selected the best quality. Yu had a weak body, so she was very careful about everything, no matter how big or small. During this time, Wuxia had some free time, so he curiously took a look around the small apartment. After entering, there was a bathroom that was as small as a fish tank on the left. Wuxia frowned as he walked in. His head almost bumped into the door frame. It was too small. The space of 7 to 8 square meters was stuffed with an old automatic washing machine, a toilet bowl, and a sink. When he walked in, he accidentally bumped his knee into the washing machine. The man frowned slightly. He was extremely displeased and was even more disgusted. The bathroom was described as smaller than a fish tank because there was a wall-mounted aquarium outside the living room of the Mu residence. Just the aquarium alone was 5 to 6 meters long, so it was indeed much bigger than this bathroom. A human is inferior to a fish. Wuxia walked into the kitchen again. The first thing he saw was 2 little bare aprons hanging on the barbs. One big and one small. It looked very warm. There was a duty list on the door. He glanced at it. There were 7 days in a week. Yu was responsible for 5 days of meals, and Yun Shishir was responsible for 3 meals on weekends. The man smiled and could not help but find it interesting. Turned out that this Xiao Bao knew how to cook. A 6-year-old child actually knows how to do housework. I wonder how good her skills are. In the south, there were 2 rooms side by side. One of them was a study. Wuxia was a little taken aback when he walked in. There was a fax machine, a printer, a mahogany desk, a high-end computer, and a locked safe on the desk. Other than that, there was a pencil case and a thick stack of blueprints. Everything was neatly organized. What he did not know was that everything in the study was arranged by Yun Shishir according to Yun Tianyou's blueprints. It looked like a small office. Usually, Yu was the only one taking care of it, and Yun Shishir never interfered. Wuxia glanced at the blueprints on the table and picked them up curiously. He could not help being stunned when he glanced at them. This thick stack of blueprints was actually a toy blueprint. The drawing was exquisite and meticulous. Be it the design or concept, it was ingenious. Such a design draft was clearly from an excellent and professional designer. Chapter 294. Wuxia. The man raised his head. At the door of the study, Yun Shishir was carrying a pile of heavy laundry. Seeing the design drawings in his hands, she warned him sternly, "Don't touch anything in this study, or else you will be angry." This study was Yu's little world. Usually, Yun Shishir would come in to clean it, but she would not touch anything in the study. Wuxia put down the drawings and walked out of the study. Looking from the corner of his eye, he strode into the bedroom as if he had discovered a new continent. Yun Shishir, who was standing at the side, had cold lines on her forehead. This was akin to a wealthy aristocrat visiting a slum. She did not think much of it, though. Carrying the clothes into the bathroom, she planned to wash them while she was here. Wuxia then took a tour of the bedroom. At the entrance, there was a double bed. The light blue bedding and sheets gave off a sense of childlike innocence and warmth. Yu liked the color blue, but she also liked simplicity. Hence, there were not many patterns on the sheets. It was very simple. The bedside table was filled with all kinds of books. He casually picked up a few. There were novels, fables, comic books, and fairy tales. It was as if he had finally found a trace of a child's innocence here. He slowly sat down on the edge of the bed. The scene of Yun Tianyu leaning against the headboard and lazily flipping through the comic books surfaced in his mind. These books were recommended to parents by the school. Yun Shishir specially bought a few sets from the bookstore and placed them on the bedside table. Every night before bed, she would hug Yun Tianyu and gently tell him the stories from the comic books. Usually, Yun Tianyu was uninterested in these children's comics and books. He always found them boring, but he liked listening to his mommy tell him stories. Yun Shishir's voice was very gentle. It was soft and sweet, just like a Jiangnan woman's. Listening to her sweet voice in his dreams was the happiest thing in Yun Tianyou's heart. In the narrow space, there was a strong atmosphere of life, as well as a tranquil little warmth. Although the room was a little small and the double bed was not spacious enough, Wuxia lay down with his arms as a pillow. He could not even stretch his limbs freely. However, on the blanket, There was the unique milky fragrance of a child, as well as the unique fresh body fragrance of Yun Shirshir. This fragrance was tranquil and gentle. It wasn't overbearing, but it was refreshing. Muyaja felt a moment of peace in his heart. When Yun Shirshir walked into the bedroom again, the man was lying on the bed, deeply asleep. She couldn't help but smile. She still remembered that a certain man had said that she had more energy than others. Yun Shirshir quietly walked to the bedside, squatted down, and looked at the man's exquisite sleeping face closely. The man in deep sleep had his eyes gently closed. The dim light engraved a thin layer of shadow on his angular facial features. His long, narrow eyes and thick, black eyelashes were beautiful and charming. Yun Shirshir raised her eyebrows in surprise. She remembered that when Yu was born, he had a head of thick, black hair. When his eyes were closed, his eyelashes were fine and dense, even thicker than hers. It turned out that he had inherited this man's genes. He had a high nose bridge and a beautiful curve. He was like a sculpture that had been carved with the finest craftsmanship. Chapter 295. Yun Shirshir looked at every inch of his face and suddenly admitted that this man was very good-looking. Sometimes it had to be said that the heavens were biased. They gave him all the best things in the world and were not stingy at all. His monstrous interpretation, his wealth that could rival a country, his inexhaustible wealth, and even gave him a heaven-shocking appearance. He was incomparably handsome and perfect, but it gave him a strange temperament. His mood was unpredictable and his personality was very bad. Perhaps it was the style of the children of aristocratic families, always putting themselves first. If he liked it, he had to get it. If he couldn't get it, he would destroy it and not give it to others. If he didn't like it, he didn't want it. He would never force himself for anyone and was insufferably arrogant. But he had this kind of capital. While she was lost in thought, the man on the bed suddenly opened his eyes and looked into her eyes. Yun Shirshir was caught off guard and was stunned. In the next second, an arm powerfully wrapped around her waist and pulled her into his embrace. The world in front of her eyes turned upside down and in an instant, she was pressed down by the man's body. The double bed was not big and it was hard for it to fit the man's tall body, but the texture was very soft. The bed was slightly sunken and her body sank in. Muyaja's heavy body fell on top of her and it was hard for her to breathe. Yun Shirshir's cheeks turned red because of his heavy body. "Hey, Muyaja, what are you doing?" Muyaja lowered his head and sniffed the gentle fragrance in her hair. His deep voice sounded like orchids in her ears. "Sleeping with my woman." What? She thought she had heard wrong. The man kindly reminded her. "I said, sleeping with you." Yun Shirshir was a bit defeated by him and angrily said, "Are you a stud horse? Can't you think of something else other than this? If I'm a stud horse, are you being planted?" She simply gave up struggling. How could she forget that this man had always been overbearing and aloof? He never cared about other people's feelings. She didn't struggle anymore, nor did she push him. She simply spread out her body and let him do whatever he wanted. She closed her eyes expressionlessly and did not resist at all. She was as quiet as a dead fish. However, the stalemate continued, and neither of them made a move. However, the man on top of her just quietly imprisoned her and didn't make the next move for a long time. She had some doubts in her heart. She opened her eyes slightly and saw Muyaja looking down at her. His gaze was scrutinizing and sizing her up. Suddenly, he said coldly, "Yun Shirshir, aren't you a little too tactless?" "What do you mean?" "The line of women waiting for me to pamper them stretches from here to Milan. Yet you're avoiding me like the plague." Muyaja looked at her coldly. He had seen too many tricks of loosening the reins only to grasp them better. There were always some women who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth acting in front of him. Therefore, he could tell at a glance that this woman's resistance and disobedience towards him was not some pretentious trick. Instead, he was really trying to avoid him. Arrogance. It was as if she should treat his favor as a great gift and kowtow to thank him sincerely. Yun Shirshir sneered. "They're blind, but I'm not blind." "Are they blind?" Muyaja turned slightly and supported his body with his arm. He stared at her calmly and asked, "How are they blind?" Yun Shirshir was speechless. Chapter 296. There are so many women in the world. Why do you have to be entangled with me? It's none of your business. Mu Yaja lifted her chin and his handsome face slowly approached her. His slightly cold lips were printed on the corner of her lips, and his warm breath invaded her lips. Gradually, his breathing was no longer calm and became a little rapid. His sexy thin lips gently wandered around her neck, embellishing it with light kisses, and he craved for more. At this moment, he was like a lost and thirsty traveler in the desert, and she was like a clear and pure spiritual spring. He repeatedly tasted it, but he still couldn't quench his thirst. His thin lips kissed all the way up her beautiful neck. His arms wrapped around her slim waist and pushed her back, forcing her body to be close to his chest. Through the thin material of her clothes, he seemed to be able to feel the warmth from her skin. It was tender, warm, and beautiful. Muyaja's right hand held the back of her neck, forcing her to meet his lips. His warm breath covered her lips, and in an instant, she was completely engulfed. No longer satisfied with such a light kiss, the man arrogantly attacked again, all the way to the city. However, his attack was limited to kisses, and didn't go as deep as the previous few times. The temperature in the room suddenly rose. Ambiguity, charm, and sweetness swept through. She endured it, but she was silent. Muyaja couldn't accept her lack of reaction. The tip of his tongue pried open her lips, either passionately or seductively teasing her, trying to get her to respond. However, from the beginning to the end, Yun Shirshir only closed her eyes, allowing him to do whatever he wanted. If he wanted it, she would give it to him. It wasn't too complicated. Even if she struggled, it was useless. Instead, it aroused the man's strong desire to conquer. If she opened her body and let him do whatever he wanted, he would definitely feel indifferent and even lose interest in her. At that time, wouldn't she be free? Get rid of this man and return to her own life. As expected, she didn't respond. Muyaja only felt that it was dull, and the kiss came to an abrupt end. Looking up, the man looked at her stubborn and arrogant face and frowned slightly in displeasure. It was very boring. He would rather she struggle and resist. That way, at least he would feel the pleasure of conquering. However, she opened her body and let him do whatever he wanted, and he lost interest. He lowered his head in dissatisfaction and bit her earlobe as a punishment. A sharp pain pierced through her earlobe. She clenched her teeth tightly and did not make a sound. Even if it hurt, there was no response. "Do you think you're a dead fish?" She didn't know how to respond? Or did she feel that it was too difficult to be with him? "Since you want it, I'll give it to you. I'll be obedient. Don't you want me to be obedient?" Yun Shirshir retorted sarcastically with a hint of disgust in her eyes. Of his arrogance and his forcefulness. Very of his words. Wasn't hers's. Muyaja lowered his head abruptly. His thin lips brushed past her jade-like collarbones and landed on her neck. He sucked on her skin fiercely, his hot breath continuously blowing on her skin. Chapter 297. The woman in the mirror had flushed cheeks and gloomy eyes. On her exposed neck, there was a red, swollen, and ambiguous kiss mark. She was shocked to see it. The glaring mark was like a man's insignia on her body. It was an eyesore. Yun Shirshir was furious. She rubbed her fingertips hard, but the mark only became more red and swollen, making it even more obvious. It was already midsummer, yet he left such an obvious mark on her neck. He was clearly trying to embarrass her. How could this man be so vile? She turned around and gritted her teeth. "Muyaja, you're too much. This is punishment." Punishment? Yun Shirshir widened her eyes in disbelief. What a self-righteous man. She turned around and left the room in anger. Muyaja stared at her back view as she left in a huff. His lips curled into a triumphant smile. Yun Shirshir rushed into the kitchen and leaned against the sink. She scooped up a handful of water and splashed it on her burning cheeks, as if this was the only way to cool down her burning skin quickly. She took a wet towel and wiped her cheeks and neck repeatedly. She rubbed it fiercely as if she wanted to wipe off the man's scent and marks on her body. However, after a while, she sighed in vain. Why did he have to make things difficult for himself? Was he torturing himself as well? Grumble. A long and weak sound came from her stomach. She was hungry. Biting her lower lip, she opened the fridge gloomily. There were not many ingredients left at home. There were only a few eggs, a piece of beef, and a bundle of dried noodles. Thus, she thought of making some food to fill her stomach and then rushing to the hospital to replace Yun. Her culinary skills were not considered good. When she was in the Yun family, all the household chores were done by her. At that time, she was still studying. Although she had to work daily and was very busy, Yun's 3 shifts were reversed. Li Qin had never cooked before, so she could not count on Yun to do so. Thus, she had to cook all 3 meals at home. After she moved out of the Yun family and stepped into society, she was often overwhelmed with work. Fortunately, Yu was obedient and sensible. Feeling sorry for her busy work, he bought a stack of cookery books from the bookstore and developed some good culinary skills. In the end, Yu's cooking was far beyond her standards. However, her culinary skills were not bad. The beef was sliced and fried out of the wok. The noodles were placed in the wok and 2 eggs were placed on top. After a while, a large bowl of noodles was brought out of the kitchen. Wuxia smelled the aroma from far away in the bedroom. Smelling the aroma, he walked out of the room. Yun went back to the kitchen to get a pair of chopsticks and a spoon. When she came out, she saw the man sitting at the dining table leisurely, holding a bowl of noodles and tasting a mouthful of broth. It was surprisingly delicious. The man raised his eyebrows and licked away the soup stain on the corner of his lips with the tip of his tongue. Clearly, he was savoring the taste. Wuxia lowered his head and stared at the noodles in the bowl. In addition to the noodles, there were 2 poached eggs and a few slices of beef. But for some reason, the aroma was overflowing and aroused his appetite. There was no doubt that he was hungry, too. He did not feel anything at first, but when the aroma wafted into the room, his taste buds had a subtle reaction. What is this? He had never seen a noodle soup with such ingredients. The chefs hired by the Mu residents were all high-class chefs from 5-star hotels. Their culinary skills were well known. Whether it was Chinese, Western, or French cuisine, they were a piece of cake. However, no matter how delicious it was, after 20 years of repeated cooking, one would get tired of it. Chapter 298. After all, young Master Mu had been living a luxurious life since he was young, so he had never seen what was called vermicelli. Could it be that someone as rich as him had never eaten vermicelli before? That was true. This was the food of the commoners. A noble like him would never have the chance to try it. Yun was silent. She was a bit speechless. She placed the chopsticks and spoon on the table. A certain man naturally picked up the chopsticks and began to eat the vermicelli. He was actually eating with relish. Outside the window, the sunlight spilled into the windowsill. Wuxia's back was straight. Even when he was eating the vermicelli, he still had an elegant manner. He was very quiet and did not even make a single sound. She finally believed that he was a true noble. The good etiquette that he had received since he was young was clearly displayed at the dining table. Even if he was holding the most common bowl of vermicelli in his hands, he still maintained the noble and elegant aura of a noble. This kind of aura was not fake. If it wasn't for the elegant etiquette that he had received since he was young, this kind of aura would have seeped into his bones over the past 10 years. Yun helplessly pursed her lips. Seeing that her portion of vermicelli had been snatched away, she could only turn back to make another one. When she brought it out again, Wuxia had already silently finished the vermicelli in the bowl. It seemed like it was to his taste. Not even a drop of broth was left. She glanced at the bowl and saw that he had really finished it all. He had eaten it very elegantly. Not even a drop of broth was spilled on the table. The etiquette of a noble was really complicated. Isn't he tired? Yun silently cursed in her heart. She sat at the table and was about to eat the vermicelli when she saw Wuxia's deep gaze land on the bowl of vermicelli in her hand. "This is mine," she muttered unhappily. To be precise, the portion that he had just eaten was originally hers. Seeing the hidden desire in his eyes, she quickly used her hand to protect the bowl of vermicelli. She was afraid that he would snatch it away again, so she warned him, "This bowl of vermicelli is mine. Cook me another bowl," he demanded confidently. After finishing the bowl of noodles, he still wanted more. Yun Shirshir had obviously underestimated his appetite. He was a man after all, and he hadn't eaten his fill for the entire night. Naturally, he was hungry. Her brows furrowed, and she was speechless. "If you want to eat more, go cook it yourself." Muyaja's handsome eyes fixed on her. "I won't." "No? Serves you right to starve." She was not surprised to see the man's handsome face turn gloomy as she said this. Yun Shirshir was a little pleased with herself. She had been bullied by him so many times. This time, she had finally gotten back at him. Let him watch her eat to her heart's content. "You'll be starved to death." Yun Shirshir cursed in her heart with satisfaction. She skillfully picked up the noodles with her chopsticks and slurped a mouthful. Slurp, slurp. She didn't eat vermicelli as elegantly as Muyaja. Even when eating, he had to maintain a noble demeanor. He didn't even make a sound when eating vermicelli. If you want to eat vermicelli, you have to slurp it. Yun Shirshir was really hungry, so she was too lazy to care about her demeanor in front of him. She took a big bite and stuffed her mouth full. When eating vermicelli, it was inevitable to make a small sound. Chapter 299. Muyaja frowned a little. Although he felt that she didn't look ladylike, he didn't know why. But seeing her eating like this, coupled with the slurping sound of the noodles, he felt that the noodles were even more delicious. Yun Shirshir was so engrossed in her food that she did not realize that the man sitting opposite her had quietly stood up and silently appeared beside her. He leaned over, grabbed her hand that was holding the chopsticks, and kissed her on the lips. He put the noodles that she had just eaten into his mouth. Muyaja's lips curled into a smile, clearly finding it delicious. Yun Shirshir was stunned. She suddenly wiped her lips with the back of her hand and pushed the bowl of noodles in front of him. After being teased by him, she completely lost her appetite. "You eat. I'm not eating anymore. Why are you angry? Who cares about you? Go and eat your clear soup noodles." Yun Shirshir glared at him speechlessly and went to the bathroom to take the washed clothes to cool. Muyaja saw her angry appearance and was in a good mood. He sat back at the table and enjoyed the noodles in the bowl with satisfaction. When Yun Shirshir came back from cooling the clothes, there was no one at the table. The sound of the shower came from the shower. From time to time, the man's frustrated curses could be heard. He was sweating a little after eating the noodles. Plus, he was sweating in the hot and stuffy hospital, so he wanted to take a shower. However, there was a problem with the water heater. The water came out intermittently and it was sometimes cold and sometimes hot. This made a certain young master who had always lived a good life suffer a little. Yun Shirshir's lips twitched. This man really didn't treat her as an outsider. He completely treated this place as his own home. After washing the dishes, there was a knock on the door. Yun Shirshir was suspicious. She opened the door and was shocked by the solemn scene outside. In the narrow corridor, there were 2 rows of men in black suits standing straight. Each of them had a cold expression and didn't smile. The 2 men standing at the front were holding a stack of clean clothes and walked in as if there was no one around. Just then, the bathroom door opened and Muyaja walked out with a gloomy face. The water heater was hot and cold. At this moment, his face was as black as ink. The man in the suit stood behind him and handed the clothes over. Muyaja was rubbing his wet hair with a towel. His lower body was wrapped in a teddy bear bath towel, and his upper body was bare. His well-defined muscles were stained with water, making him look exceptionally sexy and charming. Yun Shirshir's gaze fell on the teddy bear bath towel, and she held her forehead in annoyance. This bath towel was specially used by Yu. Every time the little fellow finished bathing, he would drape this bath towel over his body. However, when it was used on a man, it was so small that it could only cover half of his body. "Hey!" Yun Shirshir pointed at the towel on his body. "This is Yu's special towel." Muyaja glanced at her unhappily. "And My son is obsessed with cleanliness. Yun Shirshir mocked. Muyaja's lips twitched. He could no longer maintain his elegant bearing. Woman, you let my son live in such a shabby place? Chapter 300. Your so-called lousy place costs a few thousand a month. Young Master Mu. I'm not like you, who is so rich that you can rival a country. This place is already very decent. It's just that the water heater is broken. This man was too much. What did he mean by lousy place? Did he think that everyone was like him, with mountains of gold and silver at home? This was the capital. It was not a small city. Even if the apartment here was not in a good location, the land price was not cheap. A month's rent was already very considerable for her. Muyaja, however, asked, "Do we need to rent such a lousy place?" "Yes." The man in the suit helped him change into clean and fresh clothes. Muyaja impatiently rubbed his wet hair and walked forward to pick her up. "Let's go." Where are we going?" "I can't tolerate my woman and son living in a pigsty." "Pigsty? Wait, did he say that her home was a pigsty?" She was about to throw a tantrum when Muyaja strode over and, without giving her a chance to protest, half-carried her to the door before kicking it open with a kick. The landlord next door heard the commotion and opened the door, only to see the corridor full of bodyguards. He couldn't help but be stunned. She looked up and saw the tall man who was carrying Yun Shirshir downstairs. She was shocked. She took a closer look and saw that it was Yun Shirshir. She immediately went forward and said, "Hey, by the way, I've been looking for you for the past 2 days. Why haven't you been home? Your rent this month." The apartment Yun Shirshir rented was a property under her name. When the building opened, she bought 2 units. One of them was intended to be her son's future wedding house. However, her son was still in high school. She felt that it was a waste to leave it empty, so she simply renovated it and rented it out. As soon as she finished speaking, Muyaja impatiently refused. "I'm not renting it." "Huh?" The landlord was stunned as he watched them leave. Chairman Mu, how about this one? It's 532 square meters, 7 rooms, 3 halls and 5 guards. It has a private garden and a swimming pool. The villa has a total of 5 floors and has a private elevator. At the Shangti Walk sales office, a sales manager was introducing a luxurious villa to a cold-looking man sitting on the sofa. Muyaja took the brochure from his hand, glanced at it, and lowered his head to ask the woman in his arms for her opinion. "Do you like it?" Yun Shirshir was still in a daze. She shook her head. Seeing her shake her head, Muyaja didn't ask why she didn't like it. Instead, he directly said to the sales manager who was looking at him expectantly, "Change? Good. Please wait a moment. Chairman Mu." The manager did not have the slightest impatience and respectfully retreated. Yun Shirshir raised her head and looked around. She still felt like she was in a dream. Shangti Walk was a high-end real estate developed by Dishing Financial Group this year, catered to high-end customers. The average price of a 500 square meter villa was as high as 80 million yuan. After conversion, the average price was 160,000 yuan per square meter. It was so extravagant that it made people speechless. This real estate had villas, bungalows, and high-end apartments for high-class white-collar workers. It had a retro palace-style Mediterranean style. It was luxurious, dignified, and uniquely elegant. It was one of the most luxurious real estate in the capital. The sales manager did not recognize Muyaja at first. He only thought that he was an ordinary customer, so he did not pay much attention to him. Chapter 301. After all, he was just a sales manager. With such an ordinary status, he had no chance to meet Dishing's CEO in person. Hence, when Muyaja walked into the sales hall with Yun Shirshir in his arms, he treated them as ordinary customers. However, it was not until his assistant introduced them. "Manager Li, this is our boss, the CEO of Dishing Financial Group, Mr. Mu." Only then did he feel greatly surprised. Shangti Walk was one of Dishing Financial Group's assets, but he could never have imagined that the mysterious CEO Mu was so young. Moreover, he was shockingly handsome. Who was the woman beside him? He had heard that the CEO had a fiancée. Could this be her? On second thought, the manager smiled, but he immediately understood what was going on. His attitude became even more respectful. CEO Mu, what do you think of this? It's a large, luxurious, and well-furnished garden bungalow. It's 232 square meters and has a very quiet atmosphere. Mu Yaja pushed the brochure to Yun Shirshir. Do you like it? Yun Shirshir took a look at it and could not help but pick it up. It's so beautiful. This beautiful lady, do you like this set? Seeing that she was finally interested, the sales manager at the side asked with a gentle smile. I like it, but it's too big. Don't you have a smaller one? She had originally planned to move to another house. Her father had given her a bank card with a sum of money in it. However, at 200 square meters, it was a little too big. Usually, Yu and her father lived together, so it was a little too spacious. The manager smiled embarrassedly. This is already the smallest bungalow. What about the condominium? Yun Shirshir asked again. The manager wiped his sweat and helplessly said, the first phase of the condominium was sold out 5 months after it opened. The second phase is still under development. You don't like it? Yun Shirshir was vexed. I like it. This garden bungalow was her favorite retro palace design. It was elegant and beautiful. It was her dream home. This one, then. Mu Yaja's slender finger pointed at the brochure. Good. Please wait for a moment, Chairman Mu. The manager put away the booklet and was about to leave. Yun Shirshir was so shocked that she stopped him. Wait, miss, do you have any other orders? The manager asked curiously. Yun Shirshir said, I haven't decided yet. Consider what? Mu Yaja's face darkened. When he asked her if she liked it, didn't she say yes? Where did all these considerations come from? Yun Shirshir ignored him and asked the manager, how much is this set? The manager was stunned when he heard that. Mu Yaja frowned. That's not for you to consider. How is it not something I consider? What if I can't afford it? The manager's lips twitched. This girl. Wasn't she President Mu's little lover? But it didn't seem like it. Chairman Mu had never been so intimate with a woman before. If she wasn't his lover, why would he specially buy a bungalow to hide his mistress? Shermao Champagne Lake and a huge villa were all under his name. Why would he need to specially buy a bungalow? Woman, are you stupid? Mu Yaja glanced at her unhappily. I don't need you to buy it for me. I'll buy it myself. Chapter 302. Mu Yaja gazed deeply at her. Seeing how stubborn she was and how she was glaring at him, it was obvious that she was very dissatisfied with his act of giving her money. Suddenly, he smiled deeply and sank into the sofa casually. He raised his hand lazily and motioned for the manager to quote the price. Hello, this one is 45 million. Yun Shirshir was petrified. Mu Yaja enjoyed her shocked expression. Seeing that she was stunned for a long time, he couldn't help but mock her. What? Didn't you say that you wanted to buy it yourself? She was speechless. She thought that a villa would cost tens of millions and a garden bungalow wouldn't be that expensive. Yun Shirshir bit her lips and felt depressed. Why aren't you being stubborn anymore? Mu Yaja asked coldly. He looked up and motioned for the manager to leave immediately. The procedures to get the property certificate weren't complicated. Everything was done so quickly that it was unreasonable. Therefore, when the manager handed the new property certificate to Yun Shirshir, she still couldn't come back to her senses. Mu Yaja, who was standing at the side, leaned forward slightly to admire her dumbfounded expression. His heart was filled with joy. Are you touched? You don't have to sleep in the slums anymore. Why did you give me this bungalow? Was this man going to use this to sign an unfair contract with her again? Mu Yaja saw her wary expression and couldn't help but mock her. Do you want me to watch my son sleep in a pigsty? That's not a pigsty. Yun Shirshir emphasized again. Mu Yaja glanced at her and didn't say anything else. To him, that kind of place was no different from a pigsty. It was small and unsafe. There were dozens of residents living in that building. It might even be more than that. It was difficult to avoid miscellaneous people. In addition, the security was not in place, so anyone could come and go as they pleased. How could he allow his woman and son to live in such a foul place? However, at that moment, the woman in front of him looked stubborn and carefully protected her pitiful self-esteem in front of him. For some reason, he didn't say anything else. He said indifferently, "This is a gift." Yoon Shirshir's expression froze. That bowl of noodles as a gift. Yoon Shirshir was a little confused. What did he mean? A bowl of clear soup in exchange for a luxurious mansion? In this way, her bowl of noodles was worth tens of millions? Heavens! This was undoubtedly like winning the lottery, right? So, if I make a few more bowls of noodles for you, will you give me a few more mansions? Mu Yaja looked at her speechlessly. Yoon Shirshir looked at him provocatively. Without a doubt, if he agreed, she would make noodles for him every day. They had to eat him dry. His phone's ringtone interrupted the strange silence in a timely manner. Mu Yaja originally wanted to cut off the call, but when he saw the screen, his expression turned serious. He immediately walked to the side and picked up the phone, replying in a deep voice, "Grandpa." On the phone, the old master's voice was gloomy and angry, but he tried to control himself. "You finally know how to answer the phone. If I don't call you, you won't know where you are." Seeing that he was silent, the old master became even more furious. "Do you still know how to go home? Wanru called you so many times. Why didn't you answer? Do you still see her as your wife and me as your grandfather?" Chapter 303. "Grandpa, I'm not married to her yet," Mu Yaja said solemnly. "What do you mean by that? So what if you're not married? She's your fiancée and your future wife. Are you trying to drive me to my grave?" Grandpa Mu was infuriated. He coughed violently and cursed. "You're trying to make me angry, Grandpa?" On the other end, Mu Xing bellowed in exasperation. "Cut the crap. I'll give you 20 minutes. Come back immediately." The call was hung up. Mu Yaja's expression turned cold and gloomy in an instant. When Yoon Tianyu woke up, the sun was already high in the sky. When he opened his eyes, he realized that he had been transferred to a different ward. It was even a special ward. Luxurious decorations, elegant style, and excellent equipment. A ward was actually created with a magnificent atmosphere. It had a living room, a study room, and a bathroom. His eyes swept across the room and saw Yoon Yeching lying on the bed with his clothes on. He was snoring lightly and heavily with a tired face. He had not slept for 2 days and 2 nights. He was already exhausted. "Why is it him?" Yoon Tianyu frowned slightly, but he did not care too much about it and did not wake him up. He did not have much hatred for Yoon Yeching. He just felt that this man was too incompetent for causing his mother to suffer so much. In his heart, a man who caused his mother to suffer was useless. Did he need to say all sorts of excuses for not being able to protect someone? They were all excuses. If his mother chose to forgive him, he would also choose to let it go. Grumble. Yu rubbed his belly. He was a little hungry, so he got out of bed and shuffled to the living room in his slippers. Li Hanlin was sitting on the sofa. When he saw him coming out, he immediately stood up and greeted respectfully, "Director Yoon? Why are you here?" Grumble. Before he could finish his sentence, his stomach growled again. Li Hanlin looked at him with a smile in his eyes. "Hungry? Yoon Tianyu looked away in embarrassment, feeling that his smile was a little dazzling. "Did you bring food?" "Yes. I knew that you would be hungry when you woke up, so I brought your favorite Fuji bento," Li Hanlin said as he took out a bento and placed it on the table. "Who asked me to be the special assistant of the 24 filial piety? Where's my mommy? When I came earlier, she was already gone." Nodding his head, he sat on the sofa and gracefully finished his lunch. Li Hanlin hurriedly took out a stack of board documents and passed them to him. Yu took the documents and flipped through them one by one. These documents were all proposals from the board meeting and would be submitted to him for final approval. Those who agreed would sign their names, and the rest would be dismissed. As he flipped through the documents, he coldly remarked, "These old good-for-nothings are getting more and more useless as they get older." The more he read, the more his brows furrowed. Abruptly, he threw the document in his hand into the air. The official documents were scattered all over the ground, like snowflakes drifting down. He stood up expressionlessly, walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, and coldly said, "Since they're so useless, why don't they just lie in their coffins? I'll kindly burn a pile of paper money for them." Li Hanlin was silent. How black-bellied. Li Hanlin silently criticized him in his heart. This was his usual style, though. Chapter 304. Yun Tianyu snorted. "Humph, you're trying so hard to replace me. You should know your place first." Li Hanlin was shocked and hurriedly said, "No one in the company can replace Director Yun's position. That's for sure." Yun Tianyu turned to look at him intently. "Without me, the company is nothing but a wasteland." Li Hanlin was shocked. Although his words were calm, they hit a sharp edge and were extraordinarily bold. If someone else were to say this, they would be considered arrogant. But when it came from his mouth, it was incomparably convincing. Then the official documents. Reject them all. Understood. Li Hanlin arranged the documents and suddenly stood up. "Director Yun, are you willing to meet the person outside?" "Who?" "Li Qin." He opened the door and saw Li Qin standing uneasily outside. He did not know how long she had been waiting. Her face lit up with joy when she saw the door open, but her heart plummeted at the sight of Yun Tianyu walking out with a cold face. "Why are you here?" Yun Tianyu glanced at her coldly, mocking her for her ridiculousness. "This is my ward. Why can't it be me?" Li Qin was speechless for a moment, but when she realized that this was not the time to bicker with him, she hurriedly asked, "Where's your mommy? I want to see her." Yun Tianyu sneered, not taking her seriously at all. "Who are you? Is my mommy someone you can meet whenever you want?" Li Qin's face turned red at his words and she bellowed in exasperation. "You child? Why are you so stubborn? How can you talk to your elders like that? A B*TCH like you is only fit to talk to me like that. You?" She raised her hand in anger and swung it toward his little face. It was just like how she had insulted him in the Yun family. Yun Tianyu only raised his head to look at her coldly. Her palm swung toward him with a swift and fierce gust of wind. Her eyes did not even blink as they emitted a trace of coldness. Li Hanlin's face darkened. He quickly blocked her palm, grabbed her wrist, and pushed her to the ground. She landed on her, but as if she was going to fall apart. Li Hanlin's strength was not small. In front of him, she did not have the strength to fight back at all. She was in so much pain that she cried out. Yun Tianyu casually walked up to her and looked down at her from above. His lips curled into a mocking and cold smile. "Li Qin, why are you looking for my mommy?" Li Qin grimaced in pain. Hearing his question, she sneered disdainfully. "If there's anything, I have to discuss it with your mommy. I won't tell you. What would a child like you know?" Yun Tianyu, you're getting more and more impudent. I'm your elder. I don't want to listen to nonsense. Yun Tianyu impatiently interrupted her. "Since you want my mommy to help you, why don't you give me a reason for her to help you?" Li Qin's expression changed, and a trace of bitterness appeared on her face. At least it's on account of the 20 years of mother-daughter relationship between me and her. Chapter 305. Friendship? What a mother-daughter relationship. Was it the friendship of 20 years of oppression and humiliation? Was it the friendship of being ostracized by him? He still could not forget the dark and heavy memories of his childhood. If that was the so-called affection. Yun Tianyu let out a lazy laugh. "All right, on account of our friendship. Which ward?" She did not know if it was Yu's extraordinary aura or something else, but she actually answered hesitantly, 502. "Let's go." Yun Tianyu turned and ordered. Li Hanlin immediately followed his footsteps. He couldn't wait to see how miserable Li Qin and Yun Na were right now. Li Hanlin looked back at Li Qin with pity and mourned for her in his heart for a few seconds. Of all people to offend, she had to offend a little devil like Yun Tianyu. She would not even know how she died. It was no wonder that Li Qin had shamelessly come here. Now she was forced into a corner and had no other way out. Yun Tianyu walked to the door of the ward and saw a group of onlookers crowding around it. He was not in a hurry to enter. Instead, he stood at the door and looked into the ward through the window. At one glance, he saw Yun Na hiding in a corner, covering her face and howling in pain. Her voice was hoarse and broken. The wound on her face was originally infected and suppurated. Now that someone had pulled it, the bandages on her face were scattered messily. Her face was stained with blood, and even her hospital gown was dirty. At this moment, Li Dongqiang stood in front of the hospital bed and kicked her body from time to time. He opened his mouth and scolded, "I told you to return the money, but you didn't listen to me, did you? Do you really think that I can't do anything to you just because you're hiding in the hospital? *TCH. Brother Chong, I don't have money. I really don't have money. No money? I think you don't want to return it. If you don't want to, I'll take out your photos for others to admire. Who knows? Maybe they can be sold for a good price." He suddenly took out a stack of photos in his hand. It was unknown what kind of unsightly content was in the photos. When Yun Na saw it, she immediately turned pale with fright. She immediately knelt down and reached out to snatch it. No. When Li Dongqiang saw her, he got angry and kicked her to the corner of the wall. Yun Na's head slammed into the wall, and blood immediately flowed out of her head. She coughed out a mouthful of blood. "How disgusting," muttered Yun Tianyu coldly. Li Qin also rushed over. However, when she stood at the door and saw the messy ward, she froze on the spot and did not dare to step in. She didn't dare. She didn't have the guts. Li Dongqiang was a well-known hooligan in this area. It was not that they had not seen his methods before. He was vicious and merciless. She did not know how he managed to find his way to the hospital. As soon as he stepped into the ward, he threw Yun Na onto the ground with a slap. Li Qin was scared out of her wits by the commotion. Knowing that the debt collectors had come knocking on her door, she hurriedly ran out of the ward, hoping to find Yun Yeqing and Yun Shishir to settle this matter. Both Yun Yeqing and Yun Shishir were rich. If she were to ask them for money and return it, they wouldn't be so heartless as to leave her in the lurch. However, now, looking at her daughter, who was in such a miserable state, crying and begging for mercy with a bloody face, she could not move her feet. She was afraid that she would be implicated if she went in. She could not take a beating. Chapter 306. Li Dongqiang was not afraid at all. At this moment he was in public. The other patients and their family members in the ward had already fled the ward in fear. Li Dongqiang was not a busybody. He was only here to find Yun Na to repay the debt he owed. He would not cause trouble for other unrelated people. Li Qin, who was standing at the door, was so frightened that her legs turned to jelly. She was so frightened that she wanted to cry but did not dare to make a sound. She could only hide at the side and panic. Yun Tianyu looked at her coldly. In the face of disaster, the mother-daughter relationship was just this. This was a debt she had caused, so she had to bear it herself. Misfortune came with evil. The wheel of fortune had turned. With that thought in mind, he wanted to leave. However, just as he took a step, he heard Yun Na's anguished screams from the ward. "I really don't have money. Brother Chong, my sister has money. She has money, you can ask her for it. I'm her sister, her only sister. She'll definitely help me pay it back." Yun Tianyu stopped in his tracks. The corners of his eyes were instantly dyed with cold anger. His body emitted a dangerous and frightening aura. He turned his head and looked into the ward. Yun Na was crying bitterly as she hugged Li Dongqiang's trouser leg. She seemed to be clutching at the last straw as she said with reddened eyes, "My sister has money. You can ask her for it. She'll definitely help me pay it back. She was the one who helped me pay the previous debt." Yun Tianyu was startled and clenched his fists tightly. Mommy helped her pay the debt? When he actually did not know. Yun Na, haven't I made myself clear to you that day? Didn't you make me suffer enough last time? You said that your sister was pure, lovely, and a stunner. You even said that you wanted to give her to me to pay off your debt. What happened in the end, though? Not only was your sister not a virgin, but she also had an illegitimate child. More importantly, she had a sugar daddy behind her. I didn't even touch her, and I was almost killed. Do you think I'll fall for your trick again this time? Find trouble with her? Even if you have the guts, I won't dare to. You should be the one asking. I don't dare to provoke her again. Yun Tianyo's brows knitted tightly, and his face turned pale in an instant. Don't force me, Brother Chong. Yun Na cried helplessly. At that time, I really didn't know what kind of sugar daddy was taking care of her. You didn't know, but now you know. Damn it. I've never seen someone as heartless as you. Your elder sister has always doted on you. That day, I sent someone to ask her to collect the debt. From her tone, it seems like this isn't the first time she's cleaned up your mess. If I hadn't threatened her with her son, she wouldn't have cared about you. Suddenly, a child's tender voice came from the door. When did this happen? Li Dongqiang looked back and saw Yun Tianyu standing at the door with a pale face. His beautiful eyes were as deep and empty as a bottomless abyss. Where did this little baby come from? Li Dongqiang frowned and scolded. You don't need to know who I am. Explain what you said just now. Yun Tianyu was not in the mood to care about his rude words. His tone was gloomy and cold, but his voice was unique to a child's. Yet it was tinged with a chilling and dangerous aura. Li Dongqiang was stunned. Although the child in front of him looked no more than 6 or 7 years old, he was shockingly mature. His powerful aura almost overshadowed his sharpness. In front of a little boy, he actually lost the limelight. Chapter 307. What did you say? Why should I explain it to you? Li Dongqiang raised his head to look at the crowd outside the door and demanded fiercely. Whose child ran out? Quickly take him away. The crowd dispersed in fright. Yun Tianyu coldly said, Aren't you here to collect a debt? Explain it clearly and I'll pay for her. You're just a child. Where did you get the money? I have it. Li Hanlin, who was behind him, stepped forward with a smile. Li Dongqiang was even more confused now. Seeing this, Yun Na seemed to see the light of hope. She immediately pointed at Yun Tianyu and said, He is my sister's son. Oh, is that Yun Shishir your mommy? You don't have to care so much. I'm just asking you, how much does she owe you? Yun Tianyu asked coldly. He did not look at Yun Na, as if he was afraid of dirtying his eyes with just one look. 500,000 yuan. Yun Tianyu tilted his head and said in a low voice, Agently, yes. Li Hanlin immediately took out a stack of checks from his briefcase, wrote a string of numbers on it, signed it, and flashed it to Li Dongqiang. 1 million yuan. Li Dongqiang's eyes widened. Oh, this child is not simple. Yun Na watched with tears in her eyes until Li Hanlin flashed the amount on the check. Her face lit up with hope, but it was soon followed by disbelief. Who was this man in a suit? One look and one could tell that he was an elite, so why was he so respectful toward Yun Tianyu? Li Qin, who was standing at the door, was also dumbfounded. Who exactly was this man? How could he casually write a check for 1 million yuan? What was more shocking was that this man was submissive and obedient to Yun Tianyu, a child. What was the relationship between these two? Li Qin could not figure it out. Li Dongqiang smiled wickedly and went forward to take the check. Li Hanlin's hand, which was holding the check, moved slightly, and he caught nothing but air. Are you playing with me? Li Dongqiang was slightly annoyed. Yun Tianyu expressionlessly said, You haven't explained what you meant by your words earlier. Li Dongqiang smiled and grabbed Yun Na's collar. He patted her bleeding cheek and said, She's your mommy's sister, right? Heh, he took drugs and gambled outside and owed me a huge debt. But this bitch doesn't have any money. I threatened her and told her that I would go to her house to collect the debt. She was scared silly. Guess what she said? Li Dongqiang was a hoodlum, so his words were naturally sinister. His face was ferocious, and he looked like a ruffian. Yun Tianyu hummed and waited for him to continue. She said that she wants to use her sister to repay her debt. Li Dongqiang said slowly. Yun Tianyu's face instantly changed. It was as dark as ink. His pair of bright eyes immediately seemed to be covered by a dark haze, and a thick, vicious aura constantly surged in his eyes. "Go on," he ordered. Li Dongqiang was stunned. He was a little displeased. A child was talking to him with such a condescending attitude. However, he didn't think too much about it and continued speaking. She said that her older sister was so beautiful and refined. When I heard it, my heart itched. "Get to the point!" Yun Tianyu was a little impatient. "D***mn you little b** starred. Li Dongqiang was furious. Chapter 308. Li Dongqiang swallowed his saliva and could only continue. "She made an agreement with me. She would send her lovely sister here to accompany me for a few nights, and that debt would be written off." Hearing this, Yun Tianyu remained silent for a long time. He only stared at Yun Na with a gloomy expression. His expression was so cold that it was frightening. She didn't succeed in the end, though. In the end, she was kidnapped by the Mu family. The Mu family? Li Hanlin was startled. Mu Yaja? He. Yun Tianyu suddenly let out a few desolate chuckles. His slightly narrowed eyes suddenly opened and stared fixedly at Yun Na. His gaze was so deep that it seemed to pierce a hole in her body. "So, that's how it is?" Yun Tianyu held his forehead with his hand. His desolate laughter echoed in the room, making one's hair stand on end. Yun Na had never seen this side of Yun Tianyu before. In front of Yun Shishir, he had always been obedient and adorable. Now, however, he tore apart all his pretense and revealed himself to be cold and deep. It was as if even his surroundings were filled with a frightening aura of hostility, especially his deep eyes, which flashed with a hint of madness and ruthlessness. What are you laughing at?" He. Yun Tianyu shrugged his shoulders and laughed even more wantonly. He closed his eyes and those dark memories squeezed into his thoughts. In the scene, Yun Na pressed him onto the bed and ruthlessly slapped his body one after another. She pulled his ears and said in a sinister voice over and over again, "Little b** starred, go ahead and cry. Go ahead and make a fuss. Your mommy isn't at home right now. Let's see who's going to help you. Who will protect you?" Those dusty memories, under the stimulation, broke out of their cage and flashed before his eyes like a merry-go-round. He. His slightly trembling laughter contained the pain of his memories being torn apart. Li Dongqiang shook his head and sighed. "I didn't expect you to be willing to pay for her debt. Repaying evil with good. Isn't it? She harmed your mommy. Don't you hate her?" "Hate?" Yun Tianyu opened his eyes abruptly. There was a flash of murderous intent in his eyes. How could he not hate her? Overflowing hatred. "I originally wanted to throw her into the pond to feed the fish. Initially, when he heard that she was going to enter the entertainment industry as a celebrity, he even took a bunch of pornographic photos of her to blackmail her. Now that she was disfigured, her acting career had come to an end. Since you're paying for her debt, I'll give you these photos." Li Dongqiang passed the photo to Yun Tianyu and reached for Li Hanlin's check again. Li Hanlin coldly grabbed his wrist, rendering him unable to move. "Why are you going back on your word? Did I say that I'll repay her debt?" Yun Tianyu's voice was cold and mocking. Yun Na's heart leaped to her throat again. She thought that she was saved. So why was Yun Tianyu going back on his word? Could it be that the check was fake? Did he not mean what he said just now? His heart was like a roller coaster, hanging high for a moment, then falling to the bottom of the valley. "Then what you said just now," Yun Tianyu coldly retorted. "She owes you so much money, yet you're throwing her into the pond. How pitiful is that? Poor mommy. All the grievances she had suffered all these years were written off so easily?" Chapter 309. Throwing her into the pond like this is too merciful. He suddenly threw the photo in his hand into the air and sneered. "Chop her up and feed her to the sharks. Her death is not worth pitying." His voice was clearly so innocent, but it was now very deep and penetrating. It was as cold and eerie as the tide. Every word seemed to be squeezed out from between his teeth, and it was inexplicably hair-raising. Yun Na was so shocked that she hid behind Li Dongqiang in fright. In her heart, Yun Tianyu was no less terrifying than Li Dongqiang, who had been in the underworld for decades. In fact, he might even be more terrifying. Li Qin, who was at the door, was so frightened that she forgot to breathe. At this moment, no one considered that Yun Tianyu was only 6 years old. His words were probably just a child's babble. They only saw the bone-chilling expression on his young face. Cold and hateful, he looked at Yun Na as if she were something filthy. "Little kid, are you joking?" Li Dongqiang laughed awkwardly for a while. How could he be so ruthless at such a young age? It was indeed scary. "Joking?" Yun Tianyu said gravely. "My time is precious. Why would I joke with you?" Then, Li Dongqiang's throat was dry. He licked his lips. Even he could not help but respect this 6-year-old boy. "You mean, I'll give you the money. You deal with the person. Do you understand?" Li Dongqiang was still in disbelief. He looked suspiciously at Li Hanlin, who was beside him, only to see the latter looking down at the little lad with a frown. His eyes were filled with indescribable heartache and complexity. "Agent Li, you. Li Hanlin suddenly squatted in front of him and held his shoulders with a worried look. "Don't be blinded by hatred." Yun Tianyu did not seem to hear his advice and coldly said, "Give him the money." He did not want to deal with this kind of person personally. He was afraid that it would dirty his hands. Li Hanlin's expression was complicated. "You, I want you to give him money. Do you understand?" Yun Tianyu gripped his wrist with a pale face. His pair of black eyes stared straight ahead. Li Hanlin stared at Li Dongqiang's pale face and frowned. Finally, he stood up and handed the check to Li Dongqiang. Yun Na and Li Qin froze on the spot as if they were struck by lightning. Li Dongqiang seemed to be familiar with this kind of thing. He verified the authenticity of the check and confirmed that it was genuine. Once again, he felt incredulous. This child was not simple at all. At such a young age, he already had a boldness that ordinary adult men couldn't match, and even wealth. Even though he still couldn't figure out his identity, knowing too much might not be a good thing for him. "All right, I'll take that person away. When the time comes, I'll take some photos for you to enjoy." Just as Li Dongqiang finished speaking, Yun Na, who was at the side, wailed and crawled to Yun Tianyu's side. Hugging his frail body, she begged for mercy. "Yu, it's Auntie's fault. It's Auntie's fault. Auntie was blind in the past. It's Auntie's fault. Auntie swears that I won't bully you or your mommy anymore." Yun Tianyu looked straight ahead as if he did not hear her. He did not even look at her. Chapter 310. How ironic. In the past, whenever Yun Na saw him, she would look at him with cold disdain and call him a little b****. Now, she was kneeling beside him, kowtowing and begging for mercy. Li Hanlin, who was behind him, bent over and flung her hand away from his shoulder. Li Qin, too, crawled to Yun Tianyu's feet on all fours. Tears streamed down her face as she kowtowed and admitted her mistake. You don't really want to kill us, do you? At least, for the sake of your grandfather, please let us live. You're hiring a hitman. It's illegal and unacceptable." "Oh, hiring a hitman." Yun Tianyu muttered to himself nonchalantly and smiled slyly. Did anyone hear that? There was dead silence in the room. Who would believe a 6-year-old child's words? A 6-year-old child hiring a hitman to kill someone was simply a fantasy. In the suffocating silence, Yun Na kowtowed heavily on the floor and said hoarsely, I'm sorry. I'm wrong. I know I'm wrong." She wailed heartbreakingly as she reached out to hug Yun Tianyu. Yun Tianyu did not even look at her and coldly waved her hand away. "Don't touch me. It's dirty. Woo. You. Yun Na's teary eyes were filled with despair and sorrow. Unforgivable. Yun Tianyu's shoulders trembled slightly. He turned around and coldly said, "Li Qin, 6 years ago, you caused my mommy to become a single mother at the age of 18. She sacrificed herself for the Yun family, but how did you treat her? Abruptly, he enunciated each word clearly. Li Qin, I've long wanted to get rid of you. Yun Na sobbed and begged. Give us another chance. Yun Tianyu said, It's not that I didn't give you a chance. You didn't cherish it. Li Qin was stunned. I became so strong in order to protect my mommy. You hurt my mommy again and again. Yet you want me to forgive you. Impossible. With that, he turned and walked out of the ward. Li Dongxiang's men soon arrived. Li Qin cried behind him, You can't be that cruel, right? Yun Tianyu ignored her and quickly left the ward. Behind him were Li Qin and Yun Na's despairing faces. Back in the ward, he closed the door behind him. Yun Tianyu stood at the doorway, looking cold and ruthless. When Li Hanlin saw this, his heart ached and he hugged him tightly. Her weak body seemed to be unable to withstand a single blow. Although he wasn't his child, after a year of master-servant relationship, he had already treated him as half a family member. After witnessing his ruthless means in the business world, he was in awe of this child from the bottom of his heart. However, in front of Yun Shishir, he looked innocent and cute. When he looked at Yun Shishir, his eyes were pure and untainted. This purity was without any pretense, as if this was how he should be. However, hatred had dyed this purity black. He originally thought that it was because of his superb acting skills that he was able to switch between the front and the back. But now it seemed that he no longer thought so. What kind of childhood did this child have that he could do such a cruel thing? Cruel. To a child, it was especially cruel. He did not know how dark his childhood was to be able to gnash his teeth in hatred to kill someone. Chapter 311. At the Mu residence. Mu Yaja parked his car in the garage and walked into the living room. Both Mu Shang and Mu Wanru were there. Grandpa Mu sat in the armchair with a solemn expression. Mu Wanru, who was kneeling beside him, was carefully massaging his legs and massaging them from time to time. Grandpa Mu's face turned ashen when he saw Mu Yaja. He snorted coldly. You finally know how to come home. Grandpa. Mu Yaja greeted him. Mu Wanru looked at him. She opened her mouth a few times but did not say anything. Grandpa Mu slammed the table. He was obviously furious. Where have you been for the past 2 days? You still know about this house. I was busy. Busy? What were you busy with? You were busy with a woman's bed. Grandpa Mu was furious. Mu Wanru immediately patted his chest that was heaving up and down due to his anger. She said gently, Grandpa, don't be angry. Don't hurt your body. He must be busy with the company's affairs. That's why. Humph. He's busy. Wanru, you're always thinking of him. But has he ever thought of you? Mu Wanru's face stiffened. Her eyes were filled with grievance. The atmosphere in the living room was extremely tense. It was as if a storm was brewing. Mu Yaja sat on the sofa and brewed a cup of tea. He looked calm, as if he did not care about Grandpa Mu's anger. Grandpa Mu was furious when he saw Mu Siju's nonchalant attitude. Who did you give the bungalow at Shangti Walk to? Grandpa Mu narrowed his eyes. His face was gloomy. Mu Yaja furrowed his brows. It was obvious that his every move in the past few days was being monitored. Grandpa Mu soon heard about what he had done 15 minutes ago. This realization made him somewhat displeased. Hence, he remained silent in the face of Grandpa Mu's interrogation. Not talking, seeing that Mu Yaja was silent, he sat up straight and threw a file in front of Mu Yaja. He asked coldly, At least explain this matter clearly. Mu Yaja expressionlessly took out a stack of documents and a few photos from the folder and glanced at them coldly. Sure enough, Grandpa Mu had sent someone to investigate Yun Tianyu. Mu Wanru also walked over curiously and picked up the photos. Her expression froze and her heart sank. She did not know that he was investigating Yun Tianyu. He had no idea. Mu Wanru secretly gritted her teeth. The situation did not develop as she had expected. If Mu Shang were to investigate Yun Tianyu, he would definitely find out about Yun Shishir. At that time, if they found out about the incident from more than 10 years ago, Mu Wanru's heart was suddenly in her throat and her breathing stopped. Mu Shang was in a fit of anger, so he did not notice her abnormality. He only asked coldly, "Have you investigated this child's matter clearly?" Mu Yaja's deep gaze fell on Mu Wanru, who was unsettled, and he slowly answered, "No. I think this child is about 6 or 7 years old. When did this happen?" He angrily said, "I don't care how this child came about. Anyway, the Mu family's bloodline can't be outside. Bring him back." Mu Wanru returned to her senses and quickly said, "Grandpa, let's put this matter aside for now. We haven't investigated the matter clearly. Isn't it too hasty to make such a decision?" Chapter 312. Mu Wanru's heart skipped a beat when she heard that. Mu Yaja remained silent. Seeing that, Grandpa Mu bellowed, "Give me an explanation for this matter as soon as possible. You summoned me back just for this matter?" Mu Yaja frowned. It was not that he had never thought of letting you return to the Mu family. However, now was not the time. He already had solid evidence in his hands, but he was still a little short of it. "Of course not." Grandpa Mu calmed his anger and said in a low voice, "Arrange your marriage with Wanru as soon as possible." Mu Wanru's face lit up with joy when she heard that. She pretended to be shy and asked, "Grandpa, why so sudden marriage?" Mu Yaja's eyes twitched dangerously. "Why, if you don't arrange it as soon as possible, how long do you want to delay it? She's your fiancé and your childhood sweetheart. Now that both of you are of age, your marriage naturally can't be delayed any longer. Otherwise, I won't feel at ease even if it's delayed for a moment." Grandpa Mu slammed his walking stick on the floor as he yelled in annoyance. Mu Wanru's heart skipped a beat when she saw Mu Yaja's cold face. She hugged Grandpa Mu's shoulders aggrievely and said, "Grandpa, we're not ready yet. What do you need to prepare for a marriage? Both of you are already engaged. It's inevitable that the public will be suspicious of you if you delay the wedding. Besides, Wanru, it's not that I want to nag at you. Even if Yaja doesn't care, you should do more. Are you willing to watch your man be seduced by another woman?" Grandpa Mu sized up Mu Yaja as he said that. His voice instantly turned gloomy. "Wanru has been with you for so many years. I won't allow you to let her down. Arrange the marriage as soon as possible, understand?" Mu Yaja remained silent for a while. Suddenly, his lips curled into a deep smile. "I understand, Grandpa. That's good." His answer was like a tranquilizer. Grandpa Mu was finally relieved. Mu Wanru, who was standing at the side, was also overjoyed. She thought that Mu Yaja would try his best to reject the marriage, but he actually agreed to it. "Wanru, both of you must be well." Grandpa Mu was overjoyed as he patted the back of her hand gently with a kind look on his face. She reservedly replied, "Thank you, Grandpa. Grandpa, I'm tired. I'm going back to my room first." Mu Yaja expressionlessly said that and went upstairs. Grandpa Mu immediately signaled to Mu Wanru with his eyes, and the latter immediately understood. Lifting her skirt, she followed Mu Yaja into the bedroom. Once they were Unrao and Wanru. And Wanru saw this. Mu's when Then, she immediately went forward to help him change his clothes. The man glanced at her from the corner of his eye. His expression was distant as he dodged her actions. Mu Wanru froze on the spot as if she had been petrified. His indifference caused her to be at a loss of what to do. She felt uneasy. After pondering for a while, she finally mustered her courage to speak. "You seem to be so cold to me recently. Why? Am I?" Mu Yaja did not look at her. His eyes were fixed on the floor-to-ceiling window. He casually pulled his collar and took off his shirt. His tone was cold. Mu Wanru's heart tightened. She felt wronged. "Of course, you're always cold to me. Why? Haven't I always been like this?" His leisurely attitude made her feel even more embarrassed. However, she had no other choice. She could not choose to retreat. There was no way out for her. Chapter 313. Grandpa Mu was whispering in her ear. If the man was not proactive enough as a woman, she should let go of her modesty. She was proud of her modesty. She used to be so reserved too. However, Mu Yaja was like a proud and free wind, unpredictable. She did not even know how to talk to him to attract his attention. He had been extremely cold to her since they were young. On one hand, it should be his resistance to this marriage. On the other hand, maybe he was not interested in her at all? Mu Wanru clenched her fists and slowly took a step forward. Why don't you touch me? Mu Yaja opened his eyes slightly. His gaze was cold, but he did not say a word. She watched as the man casually pulled off his tie and took off his shirt. His elegant and calm expression made it seem as if she didn't exist. Mu Wanru's face was full of embarrassment. Seeing that he was about to enter the bathroom, she immediately took a step forward nervously and forced a smile. Is it because I'm not attractive to you? Or is it because I'm not proactive enough? She paused and hurriedly said, I can take the initiative as long as you like it. Mu Yaja turned his face away impatiently. Bang! What responded to her was the sound of the bathroom door closing. Click. The door was locked. Mu Wanru's legs went soft and she collapsed on the ground as if she had collapsed. She rubbed her hair in annoyance and felt wronged. She wanted to cry, but no tears came out. This man had always been so cold. It was the same for everyone. When they were young, Mu Yaja was not close to her. At first, to her who had just stepped into the Mu family, this young man exuded a heart-palpitating coldness and always avoided anyone who wanted to get close to him. She had no choice but to accept this. For so long, Mu Yaja had never had a woman by his side, which made her feel more at ease. But why did he have to treat that Yun Shirshir? What was so good about that Yun Shirshir? Why did this man who had always been cold take her to heart? Thinking of this, Mu Wanru's heart was filled with resentment. No, he had to act quickly. That Alan was incompetent. She had to find another way to get rid of Yun Shirshir as soon as possible. Voila! The bathroom door opened. Mu Yaja walked out of the bathroom in a brocade bathrobe. His tall figure and slightly open collar revealed his sexy and well-defined muscles. She looked even more graceful and luxurious. His slightly damp hair was slightly messy, but it didn't diminish his handsomeness at all. Instead, it made him even more handsome and charming. Seeing that she was still there, Mu Yaja's eyes flashed with disgust. Why haven't you left? Mu Wanru said cautiously, Grandpa asked me to sleep in your room tonight. Sleep with me? The man asked coldly. He lit a cigarette and took a deep puff. He rarely smoked unless it was an important social event or when he was extremely frustrated. Then he would light up a cigarette. Could be seen that he was not in a good mood tonight. Mu Wanru stubbornly did not move an inch. I know you might not be ready, and I don't want to be so fast, but Grandpa's health is not good, so I can only follow his wishes. He instructed me to do this. I don't want to anger him. I'm afraid he'll hurt his body. Mu Yaja narrowed his handsome eyes and looked at her. She actually came up with such a dignified reason. Ridiculous. You want me, okay? Chapter 3:14. Mu Wanru's face was full of shyness. She gently unbuttoned her dress and slowly approached him. As she walked step by step, her long dress fell off her body and fell to the ground. Her fair and smooth body was completely exposed to the cold air. Mu Yaja's pupils constricted. A hint of suppressed anger flashed in the depths of his handsome eyes. Tonight I'll give myself to you. You want me, okay? The woman walked in front of him. A pair of arms slowly wrapped around the man's sturdy waist. Her delicate lips softly pressed against his chest. She was trying to melt his cold heart with her tenderness. When she was looking forward to the man's next move, the man's cold voice came from the top of her head. Put it on. What? She was shocked. She raised her head in surprise but looked into a pair of deep eyes. Put it on and get lost. His voice was as cold as ice colliding. Before Mu Wanru could react, Mu Yaja fiercely pinched her chin and said with a face full of disgust, Even if you want to, you have to see if I'm interested in you. I advise you, don't try your best to show off your charm. Don't you think you're very cheap? Cheap? He asked back. What? Isn't it? Don't you think you're disgusting? Mu Yaja pushed her away heavily. If you want to seduce me, please show me some real ability. Otherwise, It will only make me more disgusted. Mu Wanru was pushed to the ground. She was in so much pain that she frowned. Embarrassed, humiliated, and broken down. She cried with red eyes. What kind of woman do you like? I can change for you. Do you like Yun Shirshir? Pure and innocent? If you were half of her, you wouldn't be so disgusting. Mu Wanru was stunned. Tears flowed freely from her eyes. The man didn't even look at her. He only felt disgusted. He hooked her with his toes and covered her body with her clothes. Get lost. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps came from outside the door. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, followed by Xiao Yichen's childish voice. Daddy, can I come in? The door wasn't locked, so Xiao Yichen tiptoed and pushed the door open. However, as soon as he opened the door, he was greeted with an unbearable scene. He saw Mu Wanru lying on the ground, completely naked, with only a dress barely covering her body. At the side, Mu Yaja stood coldly at the side, his face as dark as ink. Daddy! Xiao Yichen was shocked. His face turned red and he quickly turned around. I'm sorry. Come here. Seeing the little fellow, Mu Yaja bent over slightly and called out. Xiao Yichen blushed. He had never seen a naked woman before. Since he was young, he had been taught the etiquette of a gentleman. Therefore, it was a taboo. When he heard his daddy's call, he covered his eyes and ran into Mu Yaja's arms. Mu Yaja hugged him and covered his eyes with his large palm. He turned his head and glared coldly at Mu Wanru, telling her to get lost. Mu Wanru hurriedly put on her clothes. Embarrassed and angry, she ran away. The door closed again, and silence returned. Xiao Yichen pushed his wide palm away and asked curiously, Daddy, why isn't Mommy wearing any clothes? She's hot, Mu Yaja said calmly. It's raining outside. It's very cold. Xiao Yichen mumbled. The scene just now was too impactful. His heart still hadn't calmed down. Have you finished your homework? Yes, I finished it a long time ago. Xiao Yichen smiled and hugged his neck. I'll sleep with Daddy tonight. Okay? Chapter 3:15. By the time Yun Shirshir rushed to the hospital, it was already late at night. Perhaps it was because she had not slept a wink the entire night that she fell asleep on the sofa while she was packing her clothes. In the end, a call from her manager woke her up. Remember to come to Huanyu to sign the contract next Monday. Shirshir, congratulations on signing a contract with Huanyu Entertainment. This is a very smooth first step. He called to inform her not to miss the signing ceremony with Huanyu next Monday. She hung up the call and looked out of the window. It was already drizzling. She could not help feeling a little dazed. She had actually entered the entertainment industry. Would her career progress be smooth in the future? She rushed to the hospital and hurriedly pushed open the ward door. Yun Shirshir was also a little surprised by the luxurious VIP ward. In the living room, Yu was sitting in Yun Yecheng's arms, flipping through the comic the latter had bought in boredom. Only the heavens knew how bored he was to be flipping through the comic books that he usually disdained. When he saw Yun Shirshir, he immediately pounced into her arms barefooted. Mommy, you're finally here. I thought you were going to leave Yu alone in the hospital again. How could that be? Yun Shirshir reached out and gently patted Yu's head. She only calmed down when she saw that his complexion had regained some color. She smiled slightly and asked, Yu, have you eaten? Yes, I have. If I wait for my stupid mommy to send food over, Yu will be so hungry that smoke will come out of my 7 orifices. Yun Tianyu pouted in dissatisfaction. His tone was full of grievance and resentment. Yun Shirshir did not know whether to laugh or cry. You even learned an idiom? Did the principal teach you that? Cough. It's Yu's mommy who taught me well, Li Hanlin said awkwardly at the side. Yu coolly said, My mommy never cares about my homework, nor does she sign me up for any interest classes. Basically, Yun Shirshir was not willing to impose any heavy learning on the child. She believed that childhood should be enjoyed. Yun Yecheng dialed Li Qin's number, but the call did not get through. He had gone to Yun Na's ward earlier, but she had already left. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't contact the two of them. It was as if he had disappeared from the face of the earth. Although he had doubts in his heart, he didn't care about it anymore. Late at night, a van sped along the highway. In the pitch-black carriage, Yun-na slowly woke up. At the instant she opened her eyes, the intense pain that came from her body stimulated her nerves, and she recalled exactly what had happened. After being taken away from the hospital, Li Dongqiang tied her and Li Qin up and threw them into a van. She struggled fiercely, crying and begging for mercy in a heart-wrenching manner. An enormous fear shrouded her heart. She didn't dare imagine that she would fall to such a state. What's going on? What's going on? How could Yun Tianyu be so capable? He was only 6 years old. How could he be so heaven-defying? She seemed to remember that the man in the suit respectfully called him President Yun? President Yun? At such a young age? She had yet to figure out the ins and outs of the situation. Li Dongqiang saw that she was crying and throwing a tantrum, so he knocked her out with a knife. Yun-na only remembered that her vision turned black, and then she fainted and lost consciousness. When she woke up, she was in an enclosed space with no ventilation. It was stuffy and hot. She opened her mouth to call for help, only to realize that her mouth was taped shut. Other than moaning, she could not make any sound. Chapter 3:16. She struggled a few times to sit up, but her feet suddenly touched something soft. She was shocked and shrank into a corner. With her weak consciousness, she could tell that it was a person beside her feet. The skin was still warm, and based on the material of the clothes, she guessed that it was Li Qin. In her shock, she leaned toward Li Qin. Then both mother and daughter woke up. However, in such an enclosed space, the two of them fell into a huge panic. With her weak vision, she seemed to be able to tell that they were in a car. Where were they going? After a bumpy ride, the car suddenly came to a steady stop. Then, there was a deathly silence. Yun-na's shoulders trembled. In her great fear, she seemed to have lost the ability to think. She only hoped that time would stop at this moment. She didn't even know what was waiting for her next. Would it be hell? She trembled as her imagination ran wild. Just as she was at a loss for what to do, the car door was suddenly flung open. Li Dongqiang stood outside the car with a group of ruffians with a cigarette in his mouth. He sneered a few times and pulled Yun-na out of the car by her hair. She screamed. Li Dongqiang frowned in displeasure and slapped her. "Be quiet. What are you shouting for?" He roared. Yun-na looked at him with teary eyes. Her mouth was taped shut, so she couldn't speak at all. She could only cry and beg for mercy. She knelt on the ground with a thud and kept kowtowing. Every time she kowtowed, she hit the ground hard. Her head was bleeding, and she tried her best to beg for mercy to show her sincerity. In the face of fear, she didn't know what pain was anymore. She was numb. She only knew how to kowtow and fantasize that she could arouse Li Dongqiang's pity and spare her life. She had met Li Dongqiang before. He was cruel and merciless, and his hands were stained with blood. It wasn't that she hadn't seen him kill people. One shot and the head exploded. She was so scared that she vomited on the spot. However, the young her thought that such a man was cool and manly. However, when she faced death, she suddenly understood that life was so fragile. She didn't want to die. Her pleas for mercy did not awaken anyone's pity. Li Dongqiang clicked his tongue and shook his head. Yun-na, if you knew this would happen, why did you give it up? What's the use of begging me for mercy? I'm just working for someone else's money. Yun-na was scared out of her wits. She shook her head like a broken wave, and she kowtowed even more vigorously. As she neared death, the fear in her heart expanded infinitely. At first, when she found out that she was disfigured, she was so disheartened that she thought of killing herself. However, it wasn't until the word death was right in front of them that they realized that when they were close to death, a strong will to live would arise spontaneously. She didn't want to die. She didn't want to die. Even if he had to live an ignoble existence, he still wanted to live. Li Qin was also carried out of the carriage. Her body went limp and she no longer had the strength to beg for mercy. She was not like Yun-na, who was still young. She was already old, and her physical strength was very poor. The journey was bumpy, and as soon as she got out of the car, she vomited, felt dizzy, and was in a mess. Li Dongqiang felt nauseous. The evening breeze at the port made one's cheeks hurt. The whistle of a ship could be heard in the distance. Chapter 317. When Yun Na realized where she was petrified as if she had been struck by lightning. The harbor. Was Li Dongqiang really going to listen to that child and throw them into the sea to feed the fish? Do you have any last words to say? He looked at Yun Na with pity. She had been playing with them since junior high, so it was inevitable for her to develop some revolutionary feelings. Thus he showed her rare kindness. Yun Na shook her head with a pale face. She did not want to die. However, he mistakenly thought that she had no last words to say when she shook her head. So he signaled to the people beside him with his eyes. Remember to clean it up. Got it, Brother Chong. Li Dongqiang sneered. He stopped in front of Yun Na and gently patted her head. Sigh, poor thing. Tell me, why are you so silly? It's not that I don't want to help you. After all, we had a brief relationship before. However, you're the one who schemed against me first, so don't blame me for not caring about our relationship. With that, he stood up and watched helplessly as they were dragged away by a few footmen. Yun Na struggled with her legs flailing as she broke down and cried. At the harbor, a cargo ship was quietly anchored. Li Dongqiang was not an ordinary gangster. He had a powerful underworld organization behind him. He was involved in arms, drugs, money laundering, and everything else. Hence, he naturally had his own cargo ship. His subordinates threw Yun Na and Li Qin on the deck of the ship. With a thud, Li Qin's head hit the guardrail and she fainted. Yun Na could only watch helplessly as the cargo ship gradually left the harbor. The despair in her heart grew infinitely. Asterisk Yun Tianyo's condition quickly stabilized. The attending doctor paid special attention to it and prescribed him medication to stabilize his condition before informing him to be discharged on Sunday. On the day of his discharge, from the attending doctor to the director, a row of people lined up at the entrance to respectfully send them off. Was there a need to be so high profile? Yun Shishir was speechless. Before Yu was discharged, she had already tidied up the house. She spent half a day tidying up Yu's study room. When the car drove into Shangti Walk's bungalow district, Yun Yeching's expression changed. Shishir, did you drive the car to the wrong place? Why did you drive here? This is the villa district. Yun Shishir broke out in cold sweat. Dad, we didn't drive the wrong way. It was only when the three of them stood at the entrance that Yun Tianyo's expression changed slightly. Mommy, this isn't our house, is it? It's our new home. Yun Shishir face-bombed, not knowing how to explain. That man inexplicably gave her a bungalow and called it a gift. The average price of the houses here is more than 100,000 yuan. Shishir. Yun Yeching's face turned pale in disbelief. You might not believe me even if I tell you. Yun Shishir took a deep breath and explained. I exchanged it for 2 bowls of noodles. Yun Yeching. Who would believe that? The two of them fell silent. 2 bowls of noodles in exchange for a house worth tens of millions? What kind of joke was this? His brows furrowed slightly. Suddenly, he thought of something and smiled without saying a word. He knew who it was. He was not used to living in his previous apartment. It was quite unsafe with all kinds of people, especially at night when the apartment was near the notorious East Street. Shangti Walk, Dragon Court Real Estate Group, was under Dishing Financial Group. Chapter 318. Just as the three were about to enter the house, they heard the roar of a motorcycle coming from afar. Yun Shishir turned her head in surprise, only to see a handsome heavy-duty motorcycle parked at the garage entrance of the villa next door. A tall and slender figure came into view. She saw a tall and straight young man wearing a British trench coat and a pair of pitch-black motorcycle leather pants, which wrapped around his long legs, making them look long and stylish. The young man took off his helmet. His neat short hair was dyed white gold. He took off his sunglasses expressionlessly. A handsome face was exposed in front of everyone. Neighbor? He's so tall. It was only when he strode into a villa not far away from them that she reacted to his presence. So, he's our neighbor. He looks so familiar. Where have I seen him before? Stupid mommy. He's not a man, Yu said helplessly. She's a very famous singer. Her stage name is June Mo. Her new album has been released recently, and she's quite popular. She's actually a woman, but she's dressed neutrally. How did you know? Yoon Shirshir asked in surprise. In her impression, Yu was not very interested in music. He was hopelessly tone-deaf. Because, I've seen her on TV before, Yu replied. What Yoon Shirshir did not know was that before she signed with Huanyu, Yu had already read through all the artistes signed by Huanyu Entertainment. Thus, he had some impression of this female singer. Dad, don't stand there like a fool. The room is already prepared. Let's go in, Yoon Shirshir said. Yoon Yeching was still a little hesitant. Initially, he had planned to move back after Yu was discharged from the hospital. He lowered his head to look at Yu, only to see the little lad looking at him. He felt even more guilty and sighed. Yu raised his head and glanced at Yoon Shirshir before turning to smile at Yoon Yeching. Grandpa, why don't you stay with us? ? Yoon Yeching stared at him in shock. He thought that Yu would never forgive him. She even thought that the estrangement between them would never be erased. A warm smile appeared on Yu's face. Grandpa, don't worry. It's Mommy's wish to be filial to you and serve you in your old age. You're old now, so we should all be filial to you. Yu is so sensible. Yoon Shirshir happily planted a kiss on his cheek. She looked up and said, Dad, look, Yu has already said so. The child is so filial. Do you have the heart to reject the child? Yes. Yoon Yeching nodded profusely as he repeated the word, yes, several times in a row. His eyes could not help but moisten. The three of them chatted and laughed as they entered the villa. Monday. Yoon Shirshir woke up early, dressed up, and rushed to the headquarters of Huanyu Entertainment. The next night, Qin Zhou specially sent her a message, repeatedly reminding her not to be late. According to tradition, before the signing ceremony, there would be a personal interview with Huanyu's senior director, Ji Lin. Ji Lin, nicknamed Ji Yanluo, was famous for being strict and had a strong sense of punctuality. If the appointed time was not up, he would not be lenient. Previously, there was a newcomer who was good in all aspects, but because he missed the interview, he directly canceled the contract without mercy. Chapter 319. Just when she was anxious, a Maserati stopped steadily in front of her. The window was lowered, and a handsome young man's feminine face appeared. Yoon Shirshir frowned slightly and recognized him at a glance. No, it was her. June Mo lived in the villa next to hers. Seeing her car stop, Yoon Shirshir said in a friendly manner, Hello. June Mo took off her glasses and glanced at her with her beautiful eyes. Her thin lips curled up slightly. Get in. Yoon Shirshir was a little dumbfounded by these two simple words. What do you mean? It's hard to get a taxi here. Her voice was clear and deep with a hint of hoarseness. It was a kind of feminine between genders. If one didn't listen carefully, it would be difficult to tell her gender. Aren't you rushing to Huanyu for an interview? It's on the way. Even though it was a little abrupt, time was of the essence. She couldn't care less about being pretentious and immediately nodded. Thank you. She opened the door and sat in the back seat. June Mo skillfully turned the steering wheel and stepped on the accelerator. The car sped away from Shanti Walk. Yoon Shirshir put her bag aside and looked around curiously. Her gaze fell on the handsome face in the rearview mirror. The reason why a woman was described as beautiful was because June Mo, whether it was her temperament or her dressing, revealed a femininity that was different between men and women. She had the calmness and grace of a man, but also the exquisiteness and delicacy of a woman. This handsomeness had nothing to do with gender, especially that pair of long and narrow eyes. They were deep and charming. She even felt a little stunned for a moment. In the rearview mirror, June Mo glanced at her from the corner of her eye and met her gaze. Yoon Shirshir looked away awkwardly. The car was cold and damp. After a light rain last night, The weather in the early morning was a little cold. The air in the car was cold, and she was only wearing a thin shirt, so it was inevitable that she felt a little cold. Junimo glanced at Yoon Shirshir's uneasy face in the rearview mirror and asked, "Cold?" "Yes, a little." Junimo looked straight ahead again. She didn't say anything but turned on the heater. Not long after, the carriage was filled with warmth. Yoon Shirshir was touched by her thoughtfulness and immediately thanked her. Junmo's lips curled up, but she didn't say anything. She just took out a cigarette from the cigarette box and lit it skillfully. The lighter was a limited edition commemorative God of Fire by Zippo, and it was hard to find one on the market. A wisp of smoke filled the carriage. The smell of smoke was not strong, nor was it pungent. Instead, it smelled good. At least, it was not repulsive. The entire journey was silent. The car sped along, and the scenery outside the window flashed by. "Your name is Yoon Shirshir, right?" Her eyes lit up. "How do you know my name?" "I saw you at the banquet." Junimo was silent for a moment, as if she was considering her words. In the end, she still said two simple words, "Very beautiful." Yoon Shirshir blushed and smiled. "Thank you." He was a little surprised. Although Junimo looked a little arrogant and cold, she wasn't as unapproachable and unexpectedly friendly as she looked on the surface. Junimo said, "It's a good opportunity to sign with Huanyu. You have to cherish it." "Yes, I will." The car quickly drove into Huanyu Tower. "I'll drop you off here. I'll go park the car." After saying that, Junimo drove the car into the garage. Yoon Shirshir couldn't help but feel flattered by her kindness. It was like a dream. It was a little unreal. Chapter 320. After all, apart from Xiao Shui, there were very few women who treated her so well since she was a child. Perhaps it was because she was not good at socializing. The darkness of her childhood made her cautious in dealing with people and other aspects. Hence, she did not have many friends. Therefore, she cherished this rare kindness very much. She looked down at the time. There was still some time before the interview. When she walked out of the elevator, Qin Zhou seemed to have just arrived at the company. When he saw her, he was a little surprised. "Ah, Shirshir, you're here so early?" "Yes, I couldn't get a taxi at the entrance. Fortunately, someone sent me here in time." "Someone sent you? Who?" Qin Zhou was stunned. "What a coincidence." "I think it's Junimo." She learned her name from Yu Yu. "Junimo?" Qin Zhou frowned slightly. "Where do you live now?" "Shangti Walk." Qin Zhou was stunned. Shangti Walk was a famous mansion in the capital. Where did she live? "That's a mansion. Why do you live there?" "I won the lottery," Yoon Shirshir said awkwardly. "You're so lucky." Qin Zhou sighed sincerely. He led her into the office and suddenly thought of something. "Do you have a driver's license?" "Yes, but I don't know how to drive." "Yoon Shirshir, can you be any more stupid?" Qin Zhou said mercilessly. Yoon Shirshir said helplessly, "Are you blaming me for not knowing how to drive?" "Well, okay. After you sign the contract, I'll arrange a car for you to take you to and from work." Qin Zhou said and brought her into the office. He filled in some information for her and patiently reminded her. "The person who will be interviewing you later is Huanyu's entertainment director. He's famous for being strict and nicknamed Ji Yanluo. You have to be careful during the interview." "Yes, I will." Yoon Shirshir finished filling in the information and suddenly looked up. "If I sign the contract, will I have my own manager?" "There is." Qin Zhou took her information and looked through it carefully. "Who will it be?" "Hee, of course it'll be me." Qin Zhou smiled and said, "Xingzhe specifically asked me to take care of you. If you sign the contract with me, I'll take good care of you." Qin Zhou was Huanyu's ace manager. Whether it was his skills, resources, or background, they were all top-notch. Just making Gu Xingzhe famous was an achievement that no one in Huanyu could compare to. Even a natural idol like Gu Xingzhe would not be able to reach his current status without Qin Zhou's support. She had to admit that he was a very powerful person. If Gu Xingzhe was the king of the entertainment industry, then Qin Zhou could be described as the prime minister who supported the emperor wholeheartedly. Gu Xingzhe was able to get a role in a Hollywood blockbuster as soon as he debuted. He had signed several fashion commercials and produced a large number of albums. The reason was that Qin Zhou had a considerable amount of resources. What was the most important thing in the entertainment industry? Arranged in order: resources, background, strength, talent, aptitude, and appearance. Appearance could be remolded, and it was fine if one was not strong enough. However, resources and background were often things that could not be obtained even if one begged for it. People in the entertainment industry never dared to say harsh words and promote whoever they wanted. However, Qin Zhou had the confidence to do so. No matter who it was, as long as he said harsh words and supported them with all his heart, they would definitely become famous in his hands. Many popular artists had thrown him an olive branch and even hired him with a lot of money, but Qin Zhou was unmoved. Chapter 321. He only had one artist, Gu Xingze, under him. If he spent all his resources on him, others would be jealous. The entertainment industry was full of dangers. Gu Xingze was naturally worried about assigning Yun Shirshir to another manager. He was afraid that he would be devoured until not even his bones were left. Therefore, Qin Zhou personally came to manage Yun Shirshir. Resources were another matter. At least with Qin Zhou's methods and background, he was definitely a reliable manager. Qin Zhou urged, "Fill in these documents first. The director's office is next door. I'll bring you to see him." There were only two offices on the 18th floor of Huanyu. One was for Jilin, and the other was for Qin Zhou. It was obvious that Qin Zhou had a pivotal position in Huanyu. Yun Shirshir had just finished filling in a stack of documents when Qin Zhou took out another stack of documents like magic. She was stunned. "Why are there so many? These are all model contracts. Take a closer look. After the interview, the director will sign it." "Is it a contract to sell myself?" She rolled her eyes suspiciously. Qin Zhou rolled his eyes back and smiled evilly. "Yes, it's a contract to sell yourself. Hurry up and sign it, and you'll be mine." Qin Zhou was good in every way, but he was usually a little indecent and sharp-tongued. She vaguely remembered the last time at Empress Fashion Club, he had stabbed Xiao Dong of the Xiao group with a few words. Xiao Dong had a pair of fierce eyes that wanted to destroy him. Yun Shirshir suddenly said strangely, "You seem to be very free today. Where's Xingze?" "He went to Milan for a fashion show and will return the day after tomorrow," Qin Zhou said and suddenly teased. "Why? Do you miss him?" "Don't talk nonsense," Yun Shirshir said angrily. Qin Zhou snorted coldly. "How heartless." After a pause, he gossiped again. "To be honest, Xingze seems to be a little too concerned about you. Sai, look at him. He went to Milan to watch the show and left me alone in the company to deal with the mess." "Mess?" Qin Zhou stretched out his finger and rubbed the space between his eyebrows. With a tired face, he said, "Yeah, what a huge mess." Naturally, he would not tell Yun Shirshir that Gu Xingze had offended Yang Shouqing because of her. He hadn't been able to sleep well for the past few days as he had been dealing with this matter. He didn't know what was wrong with that kid. Of all the people he could have offended, he chose to offend Yang Shouqing, the boss of the European king. During the most glorious period of Hong Kong movies, Yang Shouqing had an unshakable position in the entertainment industry. Even though Hong Kong's movies were gradually declining, Elder Yang's status was still there. He actually went to injure someone. He didn't mind the trouble, but the trouble was that if the Gu family found out about his actions, there would be some criticism. Gu Xingze's brother was even harder to please than Master Yang. He was in a terrible fix. What happened? Just as Yun Shirshir finished speaking, there was a sudden commotion outside the door. Qin Zhou frowned and opened the door, only to see Tang Yu blocked at the door of the director's office. She wanted to enter but was stopped by Ji Lin's assistant. Tang Yu's assistant and Tang Yu were in a deadlock, staring at each other. Why is she here? Didn't she already terminate her contract? Qin Zhou sneered and muttered. She still dares to look for Ji Yanluo. Is she looking for a scolding? Chapter 322. Tang Yu terminated the contract? Yun Shirshir gossiped for once. Why did Tang Yu terminate the contract? Qin Zhou turned around and complained. My dear miss, don't you read the entertainment news on a regular basis? In any case, you're someone who's about to enter the entertainment industry. You should at least pay attention to the news in the industry. Haha. Yoon Shirshir was ashamed. I don't usually watch TV. You? Tell me. Yoon Shirshir's gossipy soul was burning fiercely. Qin Zhou sneered. What else can it be? The news about her unspoken rules is all over the city. Huanyu has always valued the image of its artists. Now that she's notorious, who else can they kick out but her? Not only that, as an artist, a few advertisers have withdrawn their contracts with her. The few movies she signed were forced to change actors midway. The losses are huge. She even has to pay the liquidated damages to the company. Yoon Shirshir's lips twitched. Unspoken rules? She was fine when he saw her at the cocktail party. In just a few days, such a big change happened? Things were still the same, but people had changed. Slap. Qin Zhou was too lazy to explain so much. He just threw a stack of newspapers in front of her. Yoon Shirshir flipped through it and frowned in surprise. Wow, that was too explosive. But what she didn't know was that it was all fate's fault. If Wuxia hadn't arrived in time, she would have been the one to appear on the headlines. But a certain someone was still oblivious to the ins and outs of the matter and was still reading the newspapers gloatingly. The newspapers published the headlines for a few days, reporting on this incident. Even now, the news was still hot and had been the topic of conversation for the public. Tang Yu returned to the villa with Huanyu's top management late at night and didn't leave. The reporters arrived in time. What was more shocking was that the two of them were so anxious that they forgot to close the curtains. The reporters took photos and videos and spread them all over the internet. It was too late to ban them. Actually, after the incident, Tang Yu's studio secretly contacted the paparazzi and offered to buy all the videos and photos in their hands at a sky-high price. They wanted to destroy the evidence and at least suppress the limelight at the critical moment. Unfortunately, these reporters refused no matter what. Even with 7 figures, they could only buy a few photos. Who's afraid of who? Their photos had already been bought by a mysterious investor at a high price. He wanted to ruin Tang Yu's reputation. Tang Yu's studio's crisis was just a last-ditch struggle. In just one night, Tang Yu's fans on Weibo had dropped by a few million. At this stage, she was still losing fans. Tang Yu was dumbfounded when he saw that his path to stardom was destroyed. He could not recover from the setback. That was not all. Blessings never come in pairs, and misfortunes never come singly. Huanyu received several notices in succession. A few advertisers proposed to terminate their contracts. Tang Yu's roles in the TV series and movies that she was filming in were removed. Even if it was a finished film, there was not a single bit of her scene left. Now that her reputation was in tatters, Huanyu was facing a sky-high penalty for breaching the contract. The higher-ups were furious. For companies, artists were like products. Without popularity, they would have no value. Huanyu Entertainment and Tang Yu's studio laid their cards on the table and proposed to terminate the contract. Tang Yu was about to face a sky-high penalty of 9 figures. How pitiful! A pitiful person must have something hateful, Yoon Shirshir said. Chapter 323. Stop fooling around. Yoon Shirshir slapped his hand away. Just as Tang Yu was feeling depressed, she saw that Qin Zhou's office was open. She rolled her eyes and walked in with a smile. Nobody knew what she was thinking. Chairman Qin. When she saw him, she would first sweetly compliment him. Qin Zhou held shares in Huanyu. Therefore, artists and staff who were of a lower level had to respectfully address him as Chairman Qin, even if they weren't A-listers. Qin Zhou knew that she was up to no good. He rolled his eyes lazily. What? Tang Yu was about to speak when she entered the room. She was dumbfounded when she saw Yoon Shirshir, who was sitting at the side and signing an agreement. Yoon Shirshir, why are you here? It's none of your business. Mind your own business. Qin Zhou reminded her coldly. Tang Yu remembered what she was here for. She said coquettishly, Chairman Qin, you have to help me. Her soft voice gave Qin Zhou goosebumps all over his body. Don't act coquettishly if you don't know how to. As soon as he spoke, he felt a chill run down his spine and goosebumps appeared all over his body. Help you with what? I don't know which B***tch did this to me. My reputation is ruined and the company wants to terminate my contract. Chairman Qin, you have a lot of say in the company. Also, you're such a good friend of Director G. Can you talk to Director G for me? Tang Yu felt wrong too. She was a little drunk at the cocktail party that day. In order to seek a better future, she clung onto Wuxia, thinking that she could climb into his bed. Little did she expect that he would throw her into a car and drive her to Li Wenqing's villa. Li Wenqing was one of Huan Yu's top executives and one of the company's shareholders. He also had a seat on the board of directors. He had played with many women. In a way, he could be considered Tang Yu's old flame. They had been together for a while. The few movie contracts that Tang Yu accepted were all resources provided by him. Tang Yu was a little surprised to see him. However, she thought that it was all arranged and that he had personally picked her. She did not suspect anything. Li Wenqing was also a little suspicious when he saw her. Didn't he personally pick the newcomer from the cocktail party? Her name was Yun Shishir. Why did he send Tang Yu instead? However, in the middle of the night, he had nowhere to vent his lust. As soon as Tang Yu entered the room, the two of them were entangled together. After that, he didn't expect that he would be plotted against. The pictures and text were well illustrated, and the evidence was conclusive. No matter how capable the public relations team was, they were at their wits' end. It would be difficult for them to clear their names. Qin Zhou had a headache and waved his hand. Get lost. Don't bother me. I'm also in a mess. I can't even save myself. There's still a mess that gives CO Qin a headache. Qin Zhou was annoyed. Tang Yu, now that things have come to this, nobody can save you. If you really want me to point you out a way out, seeing that you're young and have good potential, I'll be kind and introduce you to a film contract. Tang Yu's eyes brightened. He couldn't hide his excitement. Really? President Qin, I knew you wouldn't leave me in the lurch. What kind of movie is it? Qin Zhou smiled evilly. Golden Lotus 3D. F***CK. Playing with her? Jean Ping Mei 3D? That was a third-rate movie. Okay? What was this? What kind of kindness was this? He was obviously kicking her when she was down. Was he waiting to see her embarrass herself? No matter what, she was still a B-list starlet. She was also a popular teen idol. How could he let her star in such a low-class movie? You! Tang Yu was so angry that her face turned red. Chapter 324. I'm a teen idol, and you want me to star in a third-rate film? Tang Yu said angrily. Oh? You're still flattering yourself? Teen idol? You made such a big scene this time, and the video is all over the city. Who hasn't seen you naked? Why are you being so pretentious? Qin Zhou mocked. Tang Yu was speechless. Don't underestimate this resource. How many female stars are lining up to be in it? For a role in it, they're fighting so hard. Don't you care? Qin Zhou said disapprovingly. This was a blatant humiliation. Tang Yu felt so ashamed that she couldn't show her face. She said angrily, President Qin, are you hitting me when I'm down? Qin Zhou pretended to be wronged. Oh, you're biting me. I'm helping you out of kindness, and you're saying that I'm hitting you when you're down. Really, humph. Recommending you to this film is already a compliment to you. Don't you know what your reputation is? Even if it's for my sake, the director might not choose you. You? Tang Yu was so angry that she stomped her feet. Suddenly, she glanced at Yun Shishir from the corner of her eye. The latter's pen paused, and she felt a chill run down her spine. She looked up and saw Tang Yu glaring at her. What was this? She got shot even when she was lying down? Yun Shishir, what are you doing in Huanyu? Signing a contract, Yun Shishir said coldly. Signing a contract? Tang Yu was shocked. You signed a contract with Huanyu just like that? Usually, it was impossible for a newcomer to sign a contract with Huanyu Entertainment right after their debut unless they had a strong background. No matter how good their qualifications were, they were the first in history to sign a contract with the headquarters right after their debut. There were two big studios under Huanyu. Usually, newcomers who just debuted would sign a contract with a studio first. Huanyu would only seriously consider signing a contract when they had some fame. As the dream factory of the entertainment industry, Huan Yu's requirements to sign a contract were very high. Tang Yu's eyes were sharp. She saw the contract in her hand. It was indeed a model contract, and there was also a signing letter. She was so jealous that her eyes turned red. It was scary. B***th. I don't know what kind of despicable methods she used. Who are you talking about? Without waiting for Qin Zhou to speak, Yun Shishir asked coldly, "Watch your mouth." Tang Yu was stunned. At the banquet, Yun Shishir was considered a gentle and soft persimmon. Why was his mouth so sharp today? He was no longer as submissive as before. Or was it because she had lost her power that even a newcomer who had yet to debut did not put her in her eyes? Heh! When a tiger leaves the plains, it will be bullied by dogs. Her lips curled into a smile. Heh! It wasn't that she bullied the weak and feared the strong. Previously at the cocktail party, she was worried about her image. As a newcomer, she naturally couldn't show off too much at such an occasion. Otherwise, offending one person was tantamount to offending a group of people. In the entertainment industry, seniority was the most important thing. If a newcomer who had yet to debut was too ostentatious, it was inevitable that he would be surrounded and suppressed. However, now that they were in private, what was there to talk about? You've got it upside down. Now I'm the tiger and you're the dog. So what if I bullied you? Haven't you heard of the saying, beat a dog when it's down? Qin Zhou was surprised. This girl's mouth was quite vicious. Where did she learn it from? You? Tang Yu was so angry that she raised her hand. Qin Zhou quickly stopped her. Oh my God, this is my office. How dare you behave so atrociously? Chapter 325. It's not that I want to nag at you, but what's the point of arguing with her? She's barefoot now, so she's not afraid of you. Don't pester her endlessly. Yun Shishir nodded. Tang Yu was so angry that her eyes almost popped out. You? Get lost. Qin Zhou waved his hand as if he was shooing away a fly. Don't dirty my precious feng shui. What's the fuss about? Outside the office, Ji Lin stood with his arms crossed and looked at Qin Zhou and the others coldly. Yun Shishir looked toward the voice. The rumored director Ji Yanluo was actually younger than she had expected. He was about 28 years old and wore a mature business suit. His hairstyle was meticulously styled, making him look especially energetic. He was handsome and had eyebrows like stars. His facial features were more regular and he looked very mature. However, he was just as the rumors said. He was serious and his face was cold. His aura was intimidating and his eyes were dignified. Tang Yu, you still have the face to step into Huan Yu? If you have the time to pester me, why don't you think about it yourself? Your studio can't even handle the most basic public relations crisis. Ji Lin said coldly. Currently, Huan Yu's decision to deal with you is only to terminate your contract. If you continue to pester us endlessly, you'll have to face Huan Yu's ban. Every word was like a gem and sent chills down her spine. Banning order. Once Huan Yu's ban came out, she would have no chance to make a comeback. Tang Yu was still making her final struggle. Director Ji, can't you give me another chance? This time, there was a villain who plotted against me. It won't happen again. I've been loyal to Huan Yu for so many years. Even if I didn't make any contributions, I've at least worked hard. Next time? There's a next time? Ji Lin said mercilessly. You don't have any acting skills or EQ. Not only that, but your IQ is also so low. Haven't you caused enough trouble for me? You're worthless now. Get lost. Director Ji. Shut up. Ji Lin said angrily and pointed at the elevator. Get lost. Tang Yu's entire body withered. Seeing that there was no room for negotiation, he could only leave dejectedly. Before she left, she turned around and glared at Yun Shishir. Then, she stomped her feet and left. Ji Lin turned around and scolded his assistant. Do you know how to do things? Wouldn't you ask the security to chase away such a person? The assistant lowered his head with a mournful expression. He accepted the scolding and did not say a word. Yun Shishir was stunned. This Ji Yanluo had a fiery temper. He probably worked overtime again last night. Working overtime? Yes. After the banquet, he had to clean up the mess. I didn't sleep well last night, and Tang Yu shamelessly came here to make trouble. How could I not be angry? With that, Qin Zhou immediately picked up the contract letter that Yun Shishir had filled out neatly and walked up to her in a flirtatious manner. Old Ji, you're so angry early in the morning. Be careful not to hurt your kidneys. Yun Shishir. Ji Lin rolled his eyes. Have you dealt with Gu Xing's matter? This time, it was Qin Zhou's turn to be listless. No. Then you have the nerve to come and see me? Ji Lin poked his head. Take care of your artist. Don't think that he can look down on old Master Yang just because he has the Gu family's support. Qin Zhou said gloomily, I went to the hospital to see old Master Yang yesterday. His injury is not serious. It's just a small injury. He said that he wanted me to hand the person over to him and he would deal with it himself. Chapter 326. Qin Zhou brought Yun Shishir into the director's office and retreated from the room. Sit. Wait for one more person. With that, he picked up the file and looked at it. Another person? Who could it be? Was she not the only one who signed the contract today? Yun Shishir sat on the chair and looked around carefully. The decoration of the office was simple and everything was neatly arranged. There were several celebrity portraits on the wall. They were all A-list celebrities under Huanyu. Among them, Gu Xing's portrait was among them. There were many books and albums on the bookshelf. There was a short table in front of the sofa with a high-end tea set on it. There was a knock on the door. Yun Shishir turned her head in confusion and saw that it was Jun Mo who walked in. Seeing that it was her, Yun Shishir smiled. Jun Mo nodded, closed the door, and sat down beside her. Director Ji. Ji Lin raised his wrist and looked at his watch. He said coldly, You're always on time. You won't appear until the last minute. Jun Mo said indifferently, I just had a smoke outside. You're quite free and elegant? Ji Lin said. Jun Mo's lips curled as she turned to look at Yun Shishir and slowly reached out her hand. Hi. Her voice was not very warm or intimate, but there was a faint smile in her eyes. Yun Shishir smiled and shook her hand. Hello. Yes. Everyone is here. Let's start. Ji Lin sat at his desk and held the contract filled out by Yun Shishir. He asked indifferently, Yun Shishir. Yes, Director. Have you read the contents of the contract carefully? I have, she replied. Do you have any objections? No objections. Ji Lin asked a few more questions, and Yun Shishir answered them one by one. As a student of Media College, Ji Lin was very satisfied with her professionalism and conduct. But in the end, Ji Lin sternly stated a few conditions to her. Since you've read the contract carefully, you should be clear about the conditions. I hope you can abide by them. Understood. Ji Lin raised his head, looked at her deeply, and slowly said, Your aptitude is very good, but I need to give you a word of advice. Yun Shishir was all ears. Please speak. No matter what you were. But from the moment you signed the contract with Huanyu as a public figure, I hope you will be careful with your words and actions. Yun Shishir was stunned. What happened just now? I don't want it to happen again. Yes, I understand. Perhaps your impression of the entertainment industry is still limited to the reports on TV and entertainment magazines. But here, I still want to give you a piece of advice. As an artist, the company's arrangements are simple. Be obedient and do as you are told. Don't touch what you shouldn't touch. Don't make mistakes that you shouldn't. Understand? Jun Mo was a little surprised. In her impression, this Ji Lin did not seem like a patient person. Yet he gave her advice. Did it seem like he was taking special care of her? Ji Lin turned to discuss the renewal of the contract with Jun Mo. Yun Shishir listened at the side. It turned out that Jun Mo's contract with Huanyu had expired. Her aptitude was very promising, and the company hoped that she could renew the contract. In addition, her previous manager was hospitalized with cancer and the position had been empty. Ji Lin planned to assign her a new manager. Chapter 327. Among the many artists signed by Huanyu, Junjun's talent was outstanding. She was a rock singer and had her own band. She had debuted for 5 years, and with her unique personality, outstanding appearance, and excellent singing skills, she had a group of awe-inspiring loyal fans. Her popularity was high, and she had always been the focus of Huan Yu's grooming. In the entertainment industry, if one was good at singing, they would act. Jilin's plan for her was to enter the film industry and transform into an actress. In the music industry, the popularity of rock singers did not last long. If they did not transform, their accumulated popularity would eventually decline. In the end, they came up with a plan. Jilin would manage Gu Xingze under his own name, and let Qin Zhou manage Yun Shishir and Jun Jun. Without a doubt, this had been confirmed with Qin Zhou. Qin Zhou readily agreed. With the abundant resources in his hands, managing two newcomers was not a big problem. Gu Xingze was now at the peak of his popularity. He was about to set up his own record company, and the company would focus on planning for him. Qin Zhou, a general, could be considered to have retired after accomplishing his mission. Yun Shishir was a little flattered. For a newcomer like her to sign a contract with Huan Yu right after her debut, and even be assigned under a top manager, was a beautiful thing that many people in the industry did not dare to dream of. Jilin called Qin Zhou in. Qin Zhou brought a few more contracts and asked them to fill them one by one. "From now on, you are my people." Qin Zhou looked at them with satisfaction, his heart full of excitement. Jilin said, "Qin Zhou, have you really thought it through?" "I have." Qin Zhou looked relaxed and calm, his handsome face showing calmness. "I, Qin Zhou, have done my best to accompany Xingze until now. Now that Xingze has achieved success, I also want to make a comeback." As he said this, he smiled meaningfully. Men always have a strong desire to conquer, whether it's a woman or a career. After that day, the news of Qin Zhou and Gu Xingze terminating their contract spread like wildfire. Huan Yu's internal staff was shocked. It was undoubtedly a heavy bomb. Some people were happy while others were worried. He was happy that Qin Zhou had terminated his contract with Gu Xingze. If he could work with this top manager, with the superior resources in his hands, he would definitely be able to ride the wind and soar. Unfortunately, it was rumored that Qin Zhou had managed a newcomer. But before the press conference, no one knew who this lucky newcomer was. There were also some people who were surprised. In the entertainment industry, water flowed down to the bottom while people walked up to the top. Why didn't she rely on a superstar and now wanted to terminate her contract? That's a story for another day. Jilin put away Yun Shishir and Junmo's contracts, stood up and walked to them. "I hope you guys can work harder. Don't make me doubt my judgment." Junmo reached out and shook Jilin's hand. She looked confident and proud. "Thank you, Director. Thank you for your appreciation, Director Ji. I will work hard." Yun Shishir also shook hands with Jilin. Jilin sized her up from top to bottom. "Remember, I don't look at the process. I only look at the results." Qin Zhou smiled and said, "Old Ji, are you still worried about me?" "Don't worry. Junmo and Shishir are in my hands. I will definitely give you a satisfactory answer. Before that, you have to clean up the mess first before we talk about anything else." Jilin said indifferently. Chapter 328. "Before that, you have to clean up the mess first before we talk about anything else," Jilin said indifferently. Qin Zhou was instantly depressed again. At noon, Qin Zhou, Yun Shishir, and Junmo had a simple lunch before taking a short break in the company. Junmo sat on the leather chair, adjusted it to a comfortable angle, and closed her eyes to rest. Qin Zhou led Yun Shishir on a tour of Huan Yu's headquarters building and introduced it to her floor by floor. Huan Yu's headquarters towered into the clouds and was extremely spectacular. It was a full 50 floors high and was unreachable. It was Yun Shishir's first time visiting this entertainment empire that was the focus of the world's attention. Huan Yu had 2 major film and TV production companies and 3 authoritative media companies. Whether it was movies, TV series, or records, Huan Yu had everything in one place. The huge entertainment empire was run in the entire building. As the famous Dream Factory, any name of the artiste signed by Huan Yu was like thunder to one's ears. In today's entertainment industry, the 4 new female stars, the 4 ancient actors, Yang Mi, Han Yuyen, Yan Bingqing, Li Zhouxian, Lu Junyu, these hot names were all signed by Huan Yu. Huan Yu was no longer just a milestone. It was already an industry giant that monopolized the entertainment empire. Qin Zhou took her to the rehearsal room, recording studio, and interview hall. He also brought her to meet a few famous film and TV series producers and directors under Huan Yu. Yun Shirshir's elegant manner of speaking left a deep impression on many people. Everyone had high hopes for this newcomer. Then, Qin Zhou gave her a general introduction of Huan Yu's treatment. The treatment was unexpectedly good. The remuneration ratio on the contract was very generous. Generally speaking, the remuneration ratio for the artistes signed by Huan Yu was generally 70% for the company and 30% for the artistes because of the training and packaging of the newcomers. As for her share, it was 50-50. What did that mean? Let's say that according to the remuneration for the movie, The Green Apple, Gu Xingzi's contract with Huan Yu was 60% to 40%, and the remuneration was 50 million. Then, the company would deduct 20 million from this basis, and the remaining 60%, which was 30 million, would fall into his pocket. This was already the highest treatment in Huan Yu. She, on the other hand, was paid 5 million yuan. In her hands, she received a full 50%, which was 5 million yuan. Other than that, Huan Yu would also provide a car for the artists to pick them up. She was given a Volkswagen Phaeton. Even if it was a newcomer who had just debuted, the company would do their best to reduce public exposure. Huan Yu had done a lot of homework on how to protect their artists' privacy. Even the most highly trained paparazzi wouldn't be able to catch the slightest movement of an artist from Huan Yu. As for the private photos of celebrities on the entertainment media websites, they were just celebrities seeking exposure and cooperating to create hype. What awaited her next was a long and intensive training course. One of the most important aspects was the cultivation of the actors. Yun Shirshir was outstanding whether it was in terms of external conditions, appearance, temperament, manners, or internal conditions, such as conversation, etiquette, and acting skills. He only lacked the tempering of his works. In the history of Huan Yu, there had never been an artist who had both beauty and acting skills. It was also because of this that Ji Lin paid special attention to her. Chapter 329. In terms of public relations, how to deal with the tricky and demanding questions of the entertainment reporters, how to handle interviews, and a series of speaking techniques. The company required that the actors had to be fluent and flawless. Gu Xingzi was a textbook example. No matter how demanding the questions were, he could rely on his good reflexes to fend them off. Even in the face of the all-pervasive media, he could handle it with ease. Tang Yu was a classic example of a negative example. She had good looks and good acting skills, but her EQ was extremely low and she spoke without thinking. Everyone knew how she ended up. She fell from being a godly detective to the bottom of the valley. In the current situation of the entertainment industry, artists were no longer the same as before, where they were held high and mighty. Even if you were the nation's goddess, a single mistake in your words would immediately attract an avalanche of anti-fans. Apart from that, there was a series of classes. Her schedule was packed to the brim for a whole month. Apart from that, the opening ceremony of The Green Apple was also imminent. Qin Zhou informed her to go to the temporary filming set in 3 days to complete the trial photoshoot. In short, her schedule was packed to the brim with no gaps. The moment she received the schedule, she froze. It's so packed. Yun Shirshir protested a little. There were 30 days in a month, and 29 days were scheduled. The remaining day was to go to the filming set for the trial photoshoot. This schedule was unbelievably tight. Is this still considered full? Qin Zhou chuckled. Then you haven't seen Gu Xingzi's schedule. His schedule? Was there a schedule more packed than hers? You haven't officially stepped into this industry, but I've already been merciful to you. Take a look at Gu Xingzi's schedule. Qin Zhou passed Gu Xingzi's schedule to her lightly. Yun Shirshir glanced at it curiously and almost fainted. Half a month was only 15 days, but he had a total of 32 events scheduled. Apart from the events, he spent the rest of his time flying in the sky. He probably had very little sleep every day. She felt a little sorry for him. Celebrities looked glamorous on the surface, but she didn't know that they were so tired behind the scenes. She furrowed her brows and complained, "This is exploitation." Qin Zhou complained. What do you mean by exploitation? Sure. You might not know this, but to a celebrity, exposure means life. This is like the same product, one is placed in the front of the supermarket, the other is placed in the corner of the supermarket. Which one do you think will sell better? Of course it's the former, she said without hesitation. As long as you understand. Qin Zhou suddenly said in a low voice. Sure. You have to remember that in this industry. You have to be careful with your words and actions. Just like what Yan Luoji said, if you accidentally offend someone, they might even ban you from the market. When that time comes, it won't be as simple as just lying in a corner. Yun Shishir naturally understood the meaning of his words. When the time comes, I'll definitely be kicked into the warehouse to collect dust. Smart. Qin Zhou smiled. Aren't you stupid? It's all thanks to President Qin's good teaching. Naughty girl, you've got guts. Now you know how to make fun of people. Qin Zhou scolded with a smile. In the same batch of trainees, Yun Shishir's name was especially prominent. Among the 15 newcomers, she was the only one who could sign a contract with Huanyu's headquarters. She had just debuted and was already the #1 female lead in a gold medal director's movie. What made people jealous was that the moment she entered the company, she was assigned to the ace manager, Qin Zhou. Chapter 330. Many people started to mutter in their hearts. What kind of background did this newbie have? It was obvious that Huanyu wanted to groom her. She had not even debuted, but she was already chosen by a famous director and was given the role of the female lead. Lin Fengtian was a famous gold medal director in the entertainment industry. He had always been strict, but he actually chose an unknown newbie? In the history of the entertainment industry, there was no example of Lin Fengtian's movies not being popular. Many people racked their brains and still could not get a supporting role in his movies. Not only that, many celebrities were not qualified to be invited to Huanyu's annual cocktail party. Not only did Yun Shishir receive Gu Xingzi's invitation, she even became Gu Xingzi's female companion. Putting all these aside, being able to directly sign a contract with Huanyu's headquarters made many people so jealous that they gritted their teeth. What was even more frightening was that she had an ace manager behind her. It would be a miracle if this newbie did not become popular. Among the newbies, many were jealous of her. She had not even debuted, but she already had such excellent resources. They could not wait to be jealous. Therefore, Yun Shishir was inevitably ignored and questioned in the training class. However, she did not care at all. She had more opportunities than others. Any normal person would look at her with suspicion and jealousy. However, it was because of this that she had to work harder than them and cherish this opportunity more than they did. Strength was the best proof for her. After a week of high-intensity training, Yun Shishir was completely exhausted. She was very tired, much more tired than when she went to work. Her body could not bear the burden. Even so, her willpower was considered to be the strongest in the entire class. Many people could not persevere in the face of hellish high-intensity training. The trainees in the training class were cut in batches. In less than a week, half of the trainees were cut. On this day, after the training class, Yun Shishir walked to the lounge. She only felt that her head was heavy and her feet were light. She was still dizzy. The excessive pressure caused her to be unable to sleep well for several days. She muddle-headedly held onto the wall and groped her way to her lounge. She thought to herself, training classes have been packed to the brim for a month. Now it's only been a week, and she can't take it anymore. What will she do for the rest of the classes? Leaning against the door, Yun Shishir touched the key with one hand. Under Qin Zhou's special care, she had her own private lounge. She turned on her phone and saw a missed call. She stared at Yu's name on the screen and couldn't help but reveal a gentle smile. For the next few days, the school was holding an international children's summer camp in Minghai City. She was not free, so Yun Yeching accompanied the little lad. Just as he was about to dial the number back, his fingertips suddenly paused. This little guy should be having a good time right now. Now that she was busy with work, she rarely had time to go out with the little guy. It was rare for the school to hold a summer camp, so she would let him have a good time. Yun Shishir closed her phone. Forget it, it's better not to disturb him. Opening the door, The room was brightly lit. She had just walked in when she heard a devilish voice leisurely say, "Welcome back, with pleasure." Yoon Shirshir could not help but be shocked. Before she could react, she was on high alert. She turned around and looked outside the door nervously for a while before she slammed the door shut and locked it. Chapter 331. Wuxia, what are you doing here? Wasn't he supposed to be busy? On the sofa, Wuxia elegantly propped up his upper body. The lapel of his black shirt was slightly open, revealing his well-defined chest. He was wearing a pair of handsome, slim-fit trousers and a pair of expensive handmade leather shoes. His long legs were crossed elegantly, giving him a noble and unruly posture. She had to admit that his figure was very muscular and sexy. Every part of his body was perfect and well-proportioned. A silver necklace dangled between his collarbones, complementing his fair and flawless skin. It was very charming. He had flown to America a while ago and had just gotten off the plane today. His face was weary, and his black hair was slightly messy. It covered his sharp eyebrows and intertwined with his long and thick eyelashes, casting a shadow on his eyelids. Wuxia held a cigarette between his fingers, and the room was filled with a faint aroma. Yoon Shirshir stood rooted to the ground and asked with a frown, "How did you get in? And how did you know that this is my resting room? Didn't anyone stop you?" This passageway was blocked by the security guards and was heavily guarded. How did he get in so quietly? Stop me? Wuxia found her words very interesting. Huanyu Tower is mine and it's huge. Who dares to stop me? His words did make some sense. Aren't you afraid of being photographed by the reporters? Yoon Shirshir said helplessly. What a stiff tone. It sounds very uncomfortable. Wuxia smiled devilishly. He put out the cigarette and hooked his finger at her. Shirshir. Come here. Shirshir. This was the first time he had called her by her name. His tone was devilishly charming with a hint of gentleness. Yoon Shirshir was caught off guard, and a part of her heart collapsed. Come here. Seeing that she wasn't moving, a hint of displeasure appeared on his face. Yoon Shirshir could faintly smell danger. She shook her head and took a few steps back. With her back against the door, she said gloomily, I'm not going over. Wuxia curled his lips, his thick eyelashes hiding the mischievous smile in his eyes. Why? She also has a little temper. No, Mr. CEO, how would I dare to be angry with you? Wuxia's lips curled into a smile. Come here, then. She turned her face away awkwardly and stood still. Wuxia found her awkward look very interesting. You know what? The more you act like this, the harder it is for me to restrain myself. Yoon Shirshir blushed. The ambiguous meaning in his words was obvious. She immediately frowned and said, Are you a beast? I'm hungry. Wuxia's tongue curled into a frivolous smile. A hungry man is very scary. Don't try to arouse my desire to conquer. Then he leaned forward calmly. Good girl, come here. Hey! Do you want me to go over? Or do you want to come over? Leaning back in his chair, Wuxia lowered his gaze and answered, 3, 2, 1. Wuxia pretended to get up. Yoon Shirshir couldn't help but shudder when she saw this. She quickly braced herself and walked over. The man was leaning on the sofa with one hand supporting his head and a mischievous smile on his lips. Wuxia, you... Chapter 332. Before she could finish her sentence, Wuxia grabbed her wrist and pulled her into his embrace. His slender fingers lifted her chin. The man couldn't wait any longer as he lowered his eyes and kissed her lips. His body missed her a little. In the past few days in America, he had missed this woman all the time. He missed her shy and coquettish look. He missed the way she glared at him angrily. Even more, he missed the way she shyly waited under his body. Extremely charming. He missed her as if he had been poisoned by some kind of parasite. It was as if only she could cure the poison in his body. She was his poison and also his antidote. The tip of his tongue hooked into her slightly opened lips and danced around her sweetness. The faint fragrance of smoke lingered between his lips and teeth. Yoon Shirshir's heartbeat suddenly sped up, and a flirtatious blush surfaced on her cheeks. At first, the kiss had a hint of attacking a city. He pressed on step by step, and she retreated step by step. However, gradually, his kiss slowly became gentle. Wuxia supported his body with one hand, and the other domineeringly wrapped around her waist. He got up slightly and lazily leaned against the sofa. He hugged her to sit on his knees, and with one hand holding onto her thighs, his right hand tightly wrapped around the back of her neck. Using this position, he deepened the kiss. The tip of his tongue gently traced the shape of his lips. The kiss was soft, gentle, and soft, but it also seemed to have a faint trace of electricity. A trembling numbness instantly spread throughout her limbs and bones, and her body unconsciously began to heat up. The instinctive reaction hidden deep in her heart was easily dug out by him. Yun Shirshir's breathing lost its stability and became slightly rough. Elan's kiss always had a terrifying magical power that could easily ignite the passion in the depths of her heart. Wuxia smiled mischievously. His left hand evilly lifted her lapel and casually untied her knot. His ice-cold fingertips seemed to brush across her collarbone and skin. Yun Shirshir was shocked and reached out to hold his hand. "What are you doing?" "Eat you." "I don't understand you." Yun Shirshir blushed as if she didn't understand the hidden meaning in his words. Wuxia smiled and held her fingertips, guiding them to his chest. When her fingertips touched his buttons, Yun Shirshir's face immediately turned red. He had become more sensitive after not touching her for a few days. It was just a deep kiss, but her face was completely red, all the way to her ears. It was kind of cute. Wuxia said, "I didn't say that I was hungry. Woman, feed me. If you're hungry, let's go eat." Yun Shirshir was both embarrassed and annoyed. "Woman, do you really not understand, or are you pretending not to understand?" Wuxia licked and kissed the corner of her lips. The tip of his nose pressed against hers as he said softly, "Eat you? Don't you understand?" This time he understood. But Yun Shirshir sucked in a deep breath of cold air. She swallowed hard and pressed her hands against his chest. No, why can't I sleep with my woman? Why was this man so domineering? Yun Shirshir was a little angry. She was extremely tired now and wanted to eat a full meal. Then, she wanted to take a short and comfortable nap to replenish her sleep. But heaven didn't fulfill her wish. Wuxia looked at her evasive gaze and felt a little unhappy. Thus, he pinched her chin and covered her mouth with his thin lips again. Chapter 333. Pressing against her soft lips, he said in a low voice, "I missed you." His tone was filled with rare tenderness. It was a poison that no woman could resist. It was as if it had seeped into her bones and numbed all her nerves. At that moment, Yun Shirshir was powerless to resist. Hugging her waist, he turned her around and pressed her against the corner of the sofa as he slowly inched closer to her. She didn't even have the slightest leeway before her lips were softly sealed by his again. This time, the kiss wasn't as aggressive as before. His originally cold lips had some warmth under her tenderness. The deep kiss filled her mouth. He was no longer satisfied with just tasting her. He always craved more for her. She was like a mysterious treasure that tempted people to explore. The man's heavy body covered her body. She was so thin that she couldn't bear such strength. Her small hands pushed hard. Under the force, her lips and teeth tightened, blocking all his attacks outside the door. Wuxia reached out and pinched her chin. His fingertips pressed hard against her teeth. She felt the pain and couldn't help but open her mouth to compromise. A refreshing breath rushed in, covering her sweet lips and tongue, invading her. His attacks were gradual. Her beauty was hard to find words to describe in the world. Wuxia held the back of her neck. His slender fingers slowly entered her hair. He suddenly kissed her fiercely. In his passion, he couldn't wait to integrate her into his bones and blood. Knock, knock, knock. Someone suddenly knocked on the door. Yun Shirshir's eyes suddenly opened and she woke up in an instant. Her fading rationality gradually came back. She turned her head in shock and heard a woman's voice outside the door. "Shirshir, are you there?" The person outside the door was actually a newcomer from the same batch as her, Zhang Yutong. She was 23 years old and came to Beijing alone when she was in her teens. After struggling for several years, she won the opportunity to sign a contract with Huanyu Pictures. She was a newcomer with good qualifications. If she could achieve good results in this training, she could sign a contract with Huanyu Pictures and officially debut. Without waiting for her response, the woman turned the doorknob but found that it would not budge. Sure, I left my jacket in your lounge. Come in and get it. Are you there? Why is the door locked? The air was filled with a soft and charming aura that flowed ambiguously. He did not stop at all because of the commotion outside the door. She couldn't help but feel a little nervous. She pushed Muyaja, who was on top of her, but the man didn't react at all. He ignored the disturbance outside the door. She could not help but feel a little anxious at his indifference. Muyaja, stop. Muyaja smirked. What should I do? I can't stop. Yun Shirshir struggled to turn around, but was trapped in his arms domineeringly. Muyaja licked her earlobe and whispered, Let her go. Yun Shirshir, are you there? The person outside the door was a little impatient. Muyaja's flirtatious gaze became more dangerous as his eyes slowly narrowed. Yun Shirshir was scared witless. She hurriedly said loudly, I'm not free now. Yun Shirshir regretted speaking just now. Her voice was misty and trembling, full of suppressed lust. How embarrassing. Shirshir, your voice sounds weird. Are you not feeling well? Chapter 334. Muyaja gave a strange smile as his slender index finger pinched her sensitive spot. She let out a soft moan and hurriedly covered her mouth with her hand as she glared fiercely at him. Did this guy want to see her embarrass herself? Shirshir, what's wrong with you? The person outside pushed the door. Yun Shirshir's nerves were on the verge of breaking. Even her breathing became a little hurried. Answer her. Muyaja smiled evilly and the tip of his tongue traced the kiss mark on her neck that hadn't faded yet. That was the seal he had left on her body. Yun Shirshir didn't know what to say and was furious. This man was obviously trying to embarrass her. Under his attack, half of her mind was in a rational state, and the other half was on the verge of collapse. I'm fine. Your coat. I'll send it to you later. There was suddenly no sound outside the door. The long silence made her extremely nervous. However, the man found her nervous look interesting, so he didn't stop attacking her and kept messing around with her body. In the end, Yun Shirshir flew into a rage out of humiliation and wanted to stop this tense invasion. Suddenly, she felt a sharp pain on her lips. Muyaja's handsome eyes suddenly opened and a trace of scarlet flashed across his eyes. When he realized that she had bitten his lips, the anger in his eyes disappeared in a moment. In the pain, his lips quickly became numb, but he didn't retreat. Instead, he deepened the kiss with the beautiful sweet taste. The blood on his lips couldn't stop flowing. The tip of his tongue outlined, like a bloodthirsty vampire, evil and charming. He passed the sweet and fishy taste into her mouth. He wanted to let her have a taste of it. In the lounge, there was endless romance. Yun Shirshir's tongue touched a trace of sweetness, and a white light suddenly exploded in her mind. Muyaja continued kissing and plundering her passionately. However, the person under him gradually stopped responding. Muyaja slowly raised his head, only to see the person in his arms looking up at him with a pale face. Her eyes were fixed on his face. There were traces of blood on his lips. It was the blood from when she had bitten his lips. Coupled with her pale lips, it was strangely seductive. His eyes dimmed and he reached out to touch her lips, wiping away the blood on her lips. She opened her mouth and bit his finger. She left a row of deep teeth marks. Like an enraged cat, she bit fiercely without any mercy. Muyaja didn't move at all. He slowly got up and seemed to have lost interest. He casually took the suit jacket on the side, opened the door, and walked out. Outside the door, Zhang Yutong did not leave. Instead, she waited for Yun Shirshir at the door. Instead, she bumped into him unexpectedly. Zhang Yutong was stunned. With her status, she naturally didn't know who he was. Her first impression was that this man was too handsome, and he was unusually young. He was tall and had an extraordinary aura. His handsome face was like that of a god. It was difficult to measure his handsomeness with words. Who was he? Why did he walk out of Yun Shishir's lounge? Jiang Yutong's sharp eyes noticed that there was a wound on his lips, and blood was oozing out. Chapter 335. Wuxia frowned slightly. Seeing her gaze on his lips, he subconsciously licked the blood stain with his tongue. Without a word, he turned around and left. Arrogant, cold, and extraordinarily handsome. Judging from his attire, he must be a famous person who was either rich or respectable. Jiang Yutong could not believe it. She had thought that such a man would only appear in her imagination. She did not expect to see him with her own eyes. Hence, she stood there in a daze for a long time. She felt like she was in a dream. But why did he walk out of Yun Shishir's lounge? Could it be that there was some unknown relationship between them? Jiang Yutong started to make wild guesses. Although she appeared to be amiable and friendly toward Yun Shishir on the surface, everyone had their own selfish motives, didn't they? Although Yun Shishir had not officially debuted, she was already very famous. Not to mention the newcomers, even the celebrities had a lot of doubts and suspicions about her. There were rumors that Yun Shishir was able to appear in Lin Fengtian's film without debuting because she had a sugar daddy behind her. Otherwise, how could a newbie with no fame like her appear in Lin Fengtian's film? That was not all. What right did she have to be invited to Huan Yu's annual cocktail party? Even Yang Mi and Tang Yu had to rely on their connections to get in. What right did she have? She was even Gu Xingze's female companion? She heard that Gu Xingze had personally invited her. Was that possible? Gu Xingze was famous in the industry for being arrogant. Would he personally invite a newbie with no fame to be his female companion? Was it because of her looks? However, in the entertainment industry, there were many talented and beautiful women. There was no lack of different styles. Some were sexy and hot, some were outstanding beauties, and some were pure and innocent. The competition was cruel and the battles were fierce. That was not all. If she made use of this movie's female lead and the cocktail party to make a name for herself, wouldn't it be easy for her to sign a contract and debut? With such excellent resources, who would believe that she did not have a sugar daddy behind her? However, Yun Shishir was completely wronged on this point. Lin Fengtian had personally chosen her to be the female lead because Yun Shishir's temperament matched his image of the female lead. Even the picky Gu Xingze thought that she was the best choice for the female lead. Contrary to what they had guessed, the investors had already decided on the female lead. However, Lin Fengtian was adamantly against it. He would rather not film the film than let the investors force a candidate into the role. However, there was a saying that people's gossip was a fearful thing. As a result, these presumptuous remarks had already spread in private. Jiang Yutong was a little skeptical at first, but now she believed it all. She believed that Yun Shishir had a sugar daddy. Could it be that the man just now was her sugar daddy? Why? A series of questions flashed through Jiang Yutong's mind. Why did she drop out of school and come to the capital in her teens? As a young girl with an acting dream, she had spent a few years to get to where she was today, step by step, from being naive at the beginning to having the opportunity to sign a contract. Why was it that someone was able to beat her to it, and even effortlessly obtain a better result than her? On what basis? Therefore, she was more or less jealous of her. But this was human nature. Chapter 336. Hence, when Yun Shishir walked out of the restroom with her coat, the way Jiang Yutong looked at her was different from usual. Yun Shishir bumped into her when she walked out of the restroom. She was startled by her sudden appearance. Yutong, you, Shishir, why have you been in there for so long? What on earth are you doing? Why didn't you respond after knocking on the door for such a long time? Jiang Yutong came back to her senses and immediately cleaned up the messy emotions on her face. She walked in front of her with a smile and took the coat from her hand. I didn't do anything. She smiled, but she did not elaborate on the matter and simply brushed it off. She didn't know how long Jiang Yutong had been standing at the door, nor did she know how much she had heard of what had happened in the room. She only knew that she couldn't explain too much, otherwise, it would only make things worse. But, I think I saw a man walking out of your restroom just now. Your door was locked from the inside. Is there something going on between you two? Jiang Yutong pretended to be very nosy and wanted to know more about it. Yun Shishir was a little anxious. She hated Mu Yaja's casual behavior. It was as if he was the supreme ruler, as if all living beings were his playthings and should be ruled by him. He suddenly appeared in her resting room and did not seem to be afraid of the media reporters who were lurking in Huanyu Tower to take photos, saying strange things to her out of the blue that disturbed her mind. He suddenly wanted her. He wanted her all the time, regardless of the occasion. He didn't care about her feelings at all. Now, someone saw it and wanted her to explain. But how could she explain it? Seeing that she was silent, Jiang Yutong became more curious. It seemed that she wouldn't give up until she gave her a reasonable explanation. She was definitely going to pester her. But the interesting thing was she really her friend? They had known each other for less than 10 days. They were in the same training class. They had seen each other face to face and exchanged smiles occasionally. Was it necessary for her to explain so much to her? Jiang Yutong saw that she didn't speak and concluded that there must be something going on between the two of them. Wasn't that inevitable? That man must be one of Yun Shishir's financial backers. After thinking about it, she felt that it was very suspicious. Huanyu Tower's security system was in place. How could a random person sneak into Huanyu Tower? It was a leisurely stroll, as if he was taking a stroll in his own backyard, careless and unconcerned. There must be something fishy going on. This man was either a rich and powerful celebrity, or he was one of Huanyu's higher-ups. There were too many unspoken rules in this industry. The scandal of Tang Yu's sleeping scandal had caused an uproar among the public. They were shocked by the dark rules of the entertainment industry. But in Jiang Yutong's eyes, it was not surprising at all. He had been in this circle for a few years, so what kind of dark side had he not seen? No matter how talented or beautiful a newcomer was, it was impossible for her to become famous for no reason. This industry was all about background and resources. No matter how good her aptitude was, if she didn't have anyone to support her from behind, even if she wanted to become famous, it was just that she had nowhere to go. Chapter 337. There must be someone behind the scenes who pushed her to the top. If she wanted to figure it out, she had to build a good relationship with Yun Shishir first. Then she could get the man's identity and the ins and outs of the matter from her. How powerful was the person who could make a newcomer popular in such a short time? If it was possible, she might even be able to poach a man from Yun Shishir and get some resources from him. As for the hidden rules, if she could become popular overnight, she would be willing to do anything. After staying in this circle for a long time, her values were naturally not right. She could not be indifferent to the so-called innocence. After all, she was not young anymore. If she could not make a name for herself, she would never have another chance. Therefore, since she could not force her, she could only play the tender card. With a friendly smile on her face, she lowered her voice and asked, "Shishir, the man just now, is he your boyfriend?" "That's not it," she vehemently denied, feeling baffled by his words. Wasn't Jiang Yutong being overly enthusiastic about her matters? What was the relationship between her and Mu Yaja? Was it her turn to ask? Thinking of this, Yun Shishir turned and walked to the training room. When Jiang Yutong saw this, she unwillingly followed behind her and said carefully, Sure. Maybe you think that I'm the kind of person who can't keep secrets, but I've always treated you as a good friend. Among all the newcomers, you take care of me the best. We are friends, right?" Yun Shishir slowed down her pace. Friends, except for Xiao Shui. She really had no friends. When she was in school, she was a little autistic. In school, girls always liked to gather in small groups. If she could not fit in the group, she would be isolated. What's more, when she was in school, her appearance gradually grew. She was fresh, pure, and beautiful. Not only in class, but also many seniors admired her very much. Among them, some of these seniors were the most handsome men in school. They were the Prince Charming in many girls' eyes. Therefore, the hatred was more obvious. Many boys were constantly pursuing her. Every morning when they went to class, their desks would be stuffed with a stack of envelopes. Some of these envelopes contained love letters that were full of sweet nothings, while others contained razor blades and threatening letters sent by some girls. Every time, she threw them away cleanly and didn't open a single one of them. She did not have the throbbing of a girl's youth at all. What she wanted was to get into a good university, then leave the family and be independent outside. Her behavior of throwing away the love letters in the eyes of outsiders was arrogant. Most of the boys in school were hot-blooded and cared about their faces. Many boys saw that the girl they passionately pursued threw away the love letters one drawer after drawer, and their admiration turned into anger out of shame. Therefore, not only did the girls give her the cold shoulder, but the boys also ostracized her, isolated her, teased her, and even went overboard. Nobody was willing to be friends with her. It seemed that she did not need a friend. Although she was alone, there was no betrayal, no framing, no trouble, which was very good. But there were many people who pointed at her back and called her a vixen. Li Qin also scolded her, Yun Na also scolded her, and her classmates also scolded her behind her back. She was very confused for a while. She did not know what she did wrong. Chapter 338. She wasn't stupid. She knew exactly what Zhang Yutong was thinking. Zhang Yutong was trying to get information out of her. She wasn't stupid. Why would she tell her? She might look weak, but she wasn't. She stood aloof from worldly affairs. She didn't like to play games, nor did she like to cater to others. If she could get along with someone, she would. If she couldn't, she would never open her heart to them. Sure. Why aren't you saying anything? Are you worried that I'll spill the beans? Zhang Yutong patted her chest when she didn't respond. Hey, don't worry. I won't betray you. With that, Zhang Yutong stood in front of her and made a solemn vow. I swear that if I can't keep your secret, I'll be struck by lightning. It was a vow. She wasn't worried about retribution at all. Yun Shishir looked at her deeply. She suddenly felt a little tired. Why should I tell you about my relationship with him? Yun Shishir was confused. Will it help you in any way? Zhang Yutong paused for a moment and quickly explained. No, I didn't. I'm just worried about you. What are you worried about? Yun Shishir was even more curious. Zhang Yutong touched the back of her head and pretended to be worried. Shishir, you've signed a contract with Huanyu, right? Yes. She had signed a contract. But then? Have you read the terms and conditions of the contract? She replied, Yes, I saw it clearly. Then you should know that it's a breach of contract if you're dating in private. Zhang Yutong said to her in a serious tone. She seemed to be concerned, but in fact, she was trying to scare her. Yun Shishir pretended to be deep in thought. In fact, she was secretly guessing what Zhang Yutong was planning. I heard that it's a serious breach of contract. Not only will you be banned by Huanyu, but you'll also face an astronomical sum of money. You won't be able to pay it back even if you spend your whole life. Zhang Yutong said kindly. Yun Shishir said calmly, It's okay. He's not my boyfriend. Even if it was, so what? The entire Huanyu belonged to Mu Yaja. However, when Yun Shishir thought about how Mu Yaja had asked her for a sky-high penalty for breaching the contract, she shuddered. This man seemed to be capable of doing such a thing. If she made him unhappy, he didn't even need to do it himself. He could easily crush her with a single finger. Seeing her suddenly fall silent, he coldly denied it. His tone was decisive and straightforward, without even a trace of hesitation. His face was calm and composed, without any unnaturalness or guilt. It didn't look like he was lying at all. Is he really not her boyfriend? Zhang Yutong thought to herself, That's right. If such a handsome man is my sugar daddy, he's so handsome, rich, and elegant. He's like a model from an idol drama. Many people will be jealous of me if I tell them. Zhang Yutong rolled her eyes. Suddenly, she lowered her voice and whispered carefully in her ear. Shishir, that man can't be the mysterious sugar daddy behind you, right? As soon as she finished speaking, Yun Shishir raised her head abruptly. Her pair of clear eyes stared fixedly at her as her brows furrowed slightly. She seemed to have seen through Jiang Yutong's intentions. Chapter 339. Jiang Yutong's heart skipped a beat when she saw her reaction. She covered her mouth in shock. She was right, she murmured in disbelief. It can't be true, right? As she spoke, she tugged at Yun Shirshir's sleeve, her eyes burning with excitement. Shirshir, I heard from them that the reason why you can get so many resources before your debut is because you have a big sugar daddy supporting you. Are those rumors true? No. Yun Shirshir said coldly. Oh, then what's your relationship with me? I asked you a question but you didn't answer me. Do you even consider me as your friend? Jiang Yutong frowned and scolded her impatiently when she saw that she had sealed her mouth so tightly. Yun Shirshir's lips curled up coldly as she retorted, Ridiculous. When did we become friends? Why don't I know about it? Jiang Yutong was stunned by her cold question. What? She seemed to be a little lonely because of Yun Shirshir's indifference. She lowered her eyes and sighed absent-mindedly. I thought we were friends, she murmured, looking aggrieved and sad. She said bitterly, You're so nice to me. I thought you should treat me as a friend. Yun Shirshir was so angry that she laughed. You thought? Your so-called thought is just your wishful thinking. Jiang Yutong was irritated by her straightforward words. Yun Shirshir, what do you mean? You make it sound like I'm coveting something from you. Why do you have to be so sarcastic? You've really hurt my heart. Yun Shirshir's face curled into a sneer as her lips curled into a mocking smile. Jiang Yutong, what answer do you want from me? Jiang Yutong stared at her blankly. She couldn't help but feel that Yun Shirshir was so aggressive. What? I'm asking you now. Why are you silent again? Yun Shirshir's lips curled into a smile. Let me ask for you, then. You want to ask me? I'm just a newcomer. How can I be in Director Lin's film? Jiang Yutong's eyes changed. She nodded silently. Suddenly, she realized something and shook her head. That's not what I meant. Yun Shirshir smirked and took a step closer to her. Then what do you mean? On what basis can I attend Huan Yu's annual cocktail party? What right do I have to be Heavenly King Gu's female companion? What right do I have to sign a contract with Huan Yu when I just debuted? Is it related to the man you saw just now? Isn't that what you want to ask? Yun Shirshir was 1.7 meters tall, while Jiang Yutong was only 1.6 meters tall. The difference in height between them was destined to make Yun Shirshir look down on her. Jiang Yutong stared at her, dumbfounded. She clenched her fists tightly and wanted to say something, but she stopped herself. That was what she wanted to ask, but she had asked it so vaguely. She thought that Yun Shirshir, who looked dull on the surface, would not be shrewd. She did not expect her to see through her thoughts at a glance. Chapter 340. Behind her, Jiang Yutong froze on the spot with a pale face. Her eyes were filled with hatred. She was also embarrassed. Women were creatures that held grudges. Jiang Yutong swore to herself that she would return the humiliation she suffered in front of Yun Shirshir today 100-fold. However, she was a woman of her word. Therefore, when Yun Shirshir stepped into the classroom the next day, she was acutely aware of the crowd's judging, speculating, and questioning gazes landing on her. They were as sharp as arrows, making her feel uncomfortable as if she was being pricked by needles. She raised her head and vaguely saw Jiang Yutong looking at her with a deep expression. She was sitting in the corner, staring at her with a gloomy expression, as if she was very appreciative of her current awkward situation. The murmurs made Yun Shirshir feel as if she had returned to her days as a student. The moment she stepped into the classroom, she was greeted with the same piercing gazes and scrutiny. From head to toe, from the outside to the inside, it was as if they wanted to dig out every corner of her body. Humans were selfish by nature. When they met something better than themselves, they would be envious, jealous, and even want to destroy it. Jiang Yutong was such a woman. Yun Shirshir, on the other hand, preferred peace. She was not overly greedy or ambitious. Most of the time, she just wanted to enjoy the world in peace. She wanted to live and survive peacefully. This kind of peace had accompanied her for almost her entire life. No matter what kind of slander or predicament she faced, She could suppress herself and get through it calmly. This kind of peace might seem lonely or even cold in the eyes of outsiders. However, it was as if her life was destined to be full of misfortune. It was destined to not be peaceful. Yoon Shirshir pretended to be calm. She hugged her textbook and sat down in her seat. But her carefree attitude caused even more whispered discussions to arise. Buzzing, buzzing, buzzing. It was as if innumerable flies were surrounding her and circling around her, disturbing her to the point that her mind was in turmoil. She looked up slightly and glanced at the indifferent faces following the murmurs. Seeing this, those people quickly lowered their heads and pursed their lips. They felt guilty and did not say a word. However, when Yoon Shirshir lowered her head, the murmurs started again, making her feel extremely anxious. This was terrible. There was no need to think about it. Who was the culprit behind this sudden disturbance? Jiang Yutong must have spread some kind of rumor in the classroom to attract those suspicious gazes. The faces of those who were whispering to each other in private gradually became distorted and hideous in her eyes. They were incomparably hideous and ugly. She could no longer pretend to be calm. She pushed the table angrily and stood up, shouting, "Are you done?" Everyone was stunned. No one expected Yoon Shirshir, who was usually quiet and even timid, to the point that she was actually angry. For a moment, it was as if the air had frozen. Until Jiang Yutong sneered, "No one is talking about you. What are you thinking? You're deaf? But I'm not." Yoon Shirshir retorted with a sneer. Jiang Yutong choked for a moment and was speechless. People who looked easy to bully were not easy to bully.